Hello, welcome to another edition of Between Two Nuts. Today I am sitting down with Bryan the Gravedigger. We are talking a little bit about, well, we're starting the conversation about generations, but I did want Bryan to introduce himself to the audience. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight, Bryan.
Oh, it's not a problem. I'm very pleased to be here. Honestly, it's something I never really expected. My YouTube thing just kind of started off as a lark. That's why if you go back and look at some of the first videos, it's me and buddies shooting guns. I know I should pull them down, but at the same time, it's like I don't really get to see them much anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
my YouTube channel is kind of it's a catch-all. I have other places where I wanted to do the diecast stuff, but I've got the nickname here now, and everybody's kind of gotten a chance to know me and trying to. I don't like trying to move people over to different channels for things. So I'm like,
Right.
we'll do it all here.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just easier to put everyone onto one platform. That way you can kind of keep everybody together too. Nobody gets lost or like, what channel is that on again? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if it gets too distracting, I feel people will let me know, and then I have the other email addresses where I can fire up the other YouTubes, and I don't see a point yet. I just enjoy doing what I do for fun and hoping people enjoy the journey with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still figuring it all out.
Yeah, it's. I think YouTube. There, you can go in numerous different directions with different things, and you'll always find someone for that audience. So you're gonna
Right?
find somebody who's gonna be like. When I was first introduced to you is when you were back when you were like we did talk about this earlier, but when your koi pond digging, when you were making the actual
Yes.
koi ponds, and at the time, not knowing, I was like, oh, okay, CSI, and then I got that the gavel, excuse me, the gavel,
Yes. Dun
self on.
dun.
Yeah, that's yours actually, and I had set it aside so down the road if I needed to use the gavel for you. It's kind of like when I used the Go Ninja song for Shellback when he comes in,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, it's because it was a joke though that Bryan was grave digging at the time, and
Yeah. And I tried to explain to people that, yes, I have worked at a cemetery before, and it's just kind of an odd skill I have.
right.
I can dig a hole like no one's business.
But at the time, though, in his videos, though, Bryan was doing live streams of him just working on the koi ponds because koi pond work is not a joke. That is some serious skill, in my opinion, and
Yeah.
it is a talent. It is very creative in a lot of senses too. I knew someone that actually made koi ponds for a long time, and upkeep and everything. And I had to clean a bunch of koi ponds out after Andrew hit Miami because he lived in our
Oh
neighborhood.
man.
I'm going to tell you right now, that was the nastiest thing I've ever done in my life. And I will never clean
Yeah.
another koi pond again like that. That was all dead fish.
Yeah, that's why I know we touched on it earlier, but that's why I was very specific about the way I dug it. That way it was pre-planned. That way the fish wouldn't.
Right,
I'm a critter lover, and I didn't want to I didn't want to run the risk of injuring the fish by digging a bigger pond as they grew.
right.
That's why it was so huge, and I enjoyed the whole. I love the nickname. I have another nickname I've always been called, but that's because I stepped on a beehive as a child, so I've always been Little Bee or Big Bee. But Gravedigger, I was like, I'll take that.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, Gravedigger Bryan's here, and everyone's like, oh, hey, Bryan. Yeah, that's kind of how that started, and
I know I have a PB still calls me Body Barrier, so like I enjoy it. But that's another one of the reasons why I haven't fired up the different channels. Everybody's kind of gotten a chance to know me, and I don't want to. I don't want to have to kind of do the get to know you thing again.
right.
But I mean, granted, I'm doing that right now. But
Oh yeah, but it's very different. Like if someone's familiar with your screen name, at least there's that familiarity,
yeah,
and
it's almost like branding
exactly.
without being crass about it.
Right. And I think, especially with there's being so many different YouTubers, everyone kind of brings something different to content. Once you have that handle or that nickname, and even if it's in jest or whatever, it's run with it.
Oh yeah,
If it
that's like
works.
me sending you the squirrel gifts.
Exactly. Like I'm accustomed to that, and I'm like, it's fine because I get it. It was a nickname from way when I was much younger, and
Hmm.
I was like, screw it, I'll just use it. Um, but yeah, like we were talking, or we've talked quite a bit, but we've been talking about one of the topics that we touched on it a little bit in conversation, but about how older. generations have just kind of de-evolved from being a part of, a household. And when we're interacting with our own families, it's very different now than like when we were kids. I mean, you had your grandparents in your life too, correct? When you were younger.
My grandparents were very active in my life.
Mhm.
Even on my father's side, uh, didn't really get to see my father a lot as a child. We can
Mhm.
touch on that later if you want. But I always had my pap on my paternal side,
Mhm.
and he was big, giant German man. Went through war, and I had my grandparents on my mother's side, my maternal side, and I had grandma and grandpa, and uh, I never even questioned calling the other one pap until I kind of grew up, and I was like, huh, that's different.
Right.
But they were, I kind of had I always had like kind of a dichotomy with grandma and grandpa
Mhm.
because grandpa did his thing. He was non secular, and grandma was very ingrained in the faith. She canted at Catholic services. She sang for Jean Paul, the good Pope,
Oh
as I
wow.
like to call him.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to see their different opinions and approaches to things because my grandfather never drank just because his father was an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And but if you ever disrespected my grandmother, watch out because there was always the one story of the time someone called her the B word.
Oh.
Yeah, I know that sounds childish to say it that way, but
Well,
that's
no.
thinking about my grandmother. I can't even utter it that way.
Right.
It's
It's stuck in the
ingrained.
head.
That there's always a very healthy respect for grandparents to me because I feel like there's been a loss in
Yeah.
society with the way like I get that people like you move away, you have to go for a better job, things happen, but it doesn't seem like I know growing up for me, you either went to the grandparents on the holidays or they would be around there, they'd come up to you. There was always a connection, even phone calls,
Mhm.
writing letters.
Yeah.
Uh, with my pap, it was always a visit whenever we're in town because I lived in Kansas a lot as a child. And my grandma and grandpa, they'd come up to Kansas. They'd throw a hand on a farm implement that needed fixing or a vehicle that we couldn't quite figure out. Sorry, redneck came out there. A little bit too much lilt. Uh, but yeah, it's important to have them around because they're they're almost like your parents are almost like they have to. I feel anyway that they need to run a hard line.
Yeah.
The whole my kids are my friends thing. If that's you, do you?
Right.
But I feel like it's you're not really preparing them for the world,
No.
and the grandparents give you an easier access to knowledge. I guess is the way I put it.
Yeah.
That
And
they have all the worldly knowledge, and 9 times out of 10, they just want someone to talk to.
yeah, and honestly that wisdom is fleeting. So once it's
Yes.
gone, it's gone. And I don't think that a lot of people, unfortunately there's a lot of people who didn't grow up with grandparents. I grew up with mine. There was very heavily. I was very close to them. And I respected, that we didn't agree on everything, and they had their no
Yeah.
grandparent is perfect by any means, but my grandfather
Yeah.
was not. He had a beer, but he didn't drink hard liquor at all, and he didn't permit it in his house. That was just his own. He felt that liquor brought in problems. He was Catholic, Roman Catholic, and my grandmother was Irish Catholic, which means she occasionally showed up to church. Somebody died,
The
whatever.
holidays.
Yeah, and even then, it was very rare. But
Yeah.
they
No
both.
midnight mass.
Exactly. And she wasn't a drinker either. Like, that was one thing in the house I grew up with. So, substance abuse of any kind was just non existent. Like, uh, those are things, those are those backbone things. And I always ask them why. I was like, well, why doesn't, Papa Joe do this or that? And
Right.
in the end, it was because, my grandmother explained it to me, well, he just doesn't care for hard liquor. He feels that that's just, it's an evil in a
Yeah.
sense. And it brings out the worst in people and it can cause problems and ruin families. And I
Hmm.
was like, whoa, okay. And my grandmother had a zero tolerance for alcoholism, like I mean, down to the brink. So it's, you learn those skills. I didn't learn that from my mom.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I learned a lot of my life skills from my grandparents, and it wasn't so much. I remember my grandmother said one time we were talking. She was older, and we got to a point in our relationship, and this is I'm glad that you brought that point up too about when you have friendships with your children. There is a time in your life where the relationship does transfer over to friendship, but that is
Yeah.
not when they're 15, that is not when they're 12, that is not when they're 9. It's when they're older adults, they have their shit together to some extent, or
Yeah,
they
when they can come to you as an equal is the way I
correct.
think about it.
Right.
With my father, I didn't really get to know him until I was an adult, and so our relationship is very unique. It's not like anything my brothers and my sisters have. We look each other in the eye, and we know ourselves, which is one of the reasons I tried to get to know him, because there's stuff about me I couldn't figure out at all, and I'm like, okay, but I feel like it should be I know evolution almost comes off as a dirty word nowadays, but it should be a gradual evolution. And once you start to approach adulthood and you realize, for me, it was somewhere around like 22, 23, they weren't just talking out of their ass.
Mhm.
They actually knew what they were talking about.
Absolutely. And
But
that's I think with the relationship where you become quote friends, like you said, I agree with you on that. That it is a certain point as someone gets older that you do become friends because your child, and this is personal opinions, of course, and people are going to do
yeah,
what they wish. I have heard the bitching after the fact, and I've seen the lasting effects of being friends with your child versus being a parent. And then you trying to come in at the back door saying, wait, 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 don't do this. I'm now want to be your parent. It doesn't work that way.
yeah, you can't take it back.
Correct. Once it's done, you've set the stones out there, and you're kind of screwing yourself. But
And it almost seems like it's a detriment to society.
oh, I agree with that.
That my opinion, mind you, y'all, is that's kind of the reason things have devolved to what they have, between helicopter parenting,
Mhm.
and which kind of for me started around 88 when I noticed it,
Mhm.
and it kind of tapered off into like kid glove, like protect them from everything, but I still want to be your friend, like give them everything they ever wanted. It's like they're not going to know the value of earning it.
Right. Because I mean, like with I would say before my mom died, we were just slowly starting to become friends. And that
Yeah.
was a process on its own. But with my grandmother, we had hit a point where we were in a friendship place. She was much older, and she she was still my grandma. She still did grandma stuff, but she definitely talked to me more as an adult, and she was much more open about the conversations about children and people and how people treat each other and that wisdom that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I had that wisdom through the years, but it was like when I had my first child, and I was very, everything happens for a reason. I do believe these things.
Yeah.
My young son, my eldest now, excuse me, he, at the time, he was very little though. He got to know her and get that wisdom from her and have that firsthand experience of the war and being a female during that time and understanding because she was a very much a classic feminist, and that meant she believed in equality, and
Hmm.
she believed that people are responsible for their own actions, and if you act like a dumbass, you deserve what comes at you. That goes for whether or not you are a woman or a male. Um, and so it was very different form of wisdom, but that set the pace into adulthood. And I think we were talking about earlier before we started to finally record, because we talked for quite a bit about cool
Yeah.
shit. We got on a roll, guys. I'm sorry, we got on a roll. And but like one of the things you had mentioned was older generations not only just bring this wisdom to you, but they can be that almost like a second set of parents
Yeah.
that you can go to in those moments. I
It
mean, do you remember the first time you had? I don't know how old you were when until you lost them in your life, but was there ever a time where you went to your grandparents with something that you knew you couldn't go to your mom or your dad with?
I well, for me, it was never like that. Mom, it was always a very open thing, and like
Mm-hmm.
dad, I didn't even know at that time.
Right.
So for me, Pat, I'm not going to say he was more of a friend. He was definitely a father figure for me. He taught me he taught me my gun handling skills, for lack of a better word. I mean, I know it makes absolutely zero sense to
No.
hand a rifle to a 6-year-old in today's day and age, but he knew it was unloaded. But he also took that. It's a rare chance to ingrain a lesson in somebody.
Yes.
And as soon as he handed it to me, he was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And I'm like, I don't know. What am I? What should I do?" He was like, "All right, here's what you do. Flip it over, check the clip, and just I'm generalizing here for
Right,
people. It
right,
was a shotgun, but
right.
he was like, "All right, check that. Is that empty? Yes. All right, now flip it over. Here's the button. Most of the times the button is here, but make sure you look for this lever here and make sure that you can see an S or red or
Mm-hmm.
S or black."
Right.
And it was okay, and it was he taught me a lot about just proper gun handling. Like you never point it at
Right.
anybody,
Right.
even if it's unloaded. Like it points at the frickin' ground, son.
Right.
Is is the term I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and unfortunately, I'd already lost that grandmother. One of my badass grandmothers. She was the one who went through the war with Grandpa. They met
Mm.
over there in the Pacific Theater. But I didn't get to know her so much, which is it's sad. But like that's why my time with Pap was almost more of a. It was less of a father figure role, like with Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Grandpa taught me everything I know, pretty much. I had to learn how to shave on my own, but pretty much everything else, he was the end all be all receptacle of information for me.
Right.
So for him, with him, it was more of a father figure, but he was always a jokester. So that's where a lot of my mentality comes from, like
Mm-hmm.
the whole respecting the old ways. I guess is the best way to put it.
Right.
That's why I try and keep a lot of old ways of doing things alive.
And
But it was repairing things instead of replacing it.
right. Exactly.
If you can't figure it out, figure out who to ask.
And
Like before we even had the internet.
it was the self-sufficiency.
Yes, and that's a big thing for me. And I know it almost bites me in the ass because people will offer help, and I'm like, I think I got it. Like, trust me, you're my friend. I'll let you know when I need help. And it's just because I was raised in the old way
Right.
where you got it done. Like you don't quit till you get it done.
And
And
trial by
my
fire,
friends
you
kind of
know.
had it differently. Yeah, the trial by fire. Yes, I know it's got to be difficult. I can't speak from knowledge because I don't have a child myself per se, but I know it has to be hard to let your child go through that. But honestly, it teaches you so much in a quicker amount of time,
Well, yeah.
or a shorter amount of time, I should say.
Well, like
But
kids, like they have to fail in order for us.
yeah,
And that was one of the quotes I was gonna. We got on a tangent, but my grandmother
yeah,
had taken me aside and had told me, she goes, "Learn from my failures." And
yeah,
it's not about the successes that you pay attention to; it is the failures. And she goes, "Just pay." She told me, she goes, "You know, Squirrel, you need to take a step back and look at my mistakes and learn from that." And I went, "Oh, holy crap, okay." I mean, it was a very
yeah,
different piece of advice, but it made a whole lot of sense because I did see, the mistakes that she had made, and I understood them. And no families are perfect. Every family's definitely got all kinds of crazy dynamics that go on. Um,
yes,
you know, but at the same time, it's like, okay, having an adult tell you, all right, listen, don't look at my successes. That's not going to teach you crap. You know,
yeah,
and you have to let your children fail too, and that's the thing. It's like, with my own squirrels, I have definitely let them fail, not intentionally, but I had to step away because if I go into, to like you were saying, bring in the kid glove and be like, no,
yeah,
no, no,
coddling.
yeah, don't do this, you have to let them have a moment of failure so that way they can bounce back and kind of like rebuild themselves. Then you help them build themselves up a bit and say, okay,
Yeah,
what can you do to fix this differently in the future? Picking sometimes picking the road less traveled is harder, but it's the payout is greater.
Oh yeah.
You know.
It also seems like I know it hurts, but like letting them fall out of the tree,
Mhm.
scrape a knee, cut a finger,
Mhm.
you remember those moments.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I can't remember the entirety of the time I got close and touched a stove, but
Oh,
I guarantee you I remember the feeling. I get a flash in my brain of a stove and getting close and feeling the heat.
I remember
It's like the first time I learned electricity. I
was
was
it?
trying to open, remember the big giant cans of juice,
Yes.
and
Oh.
like I was taking a shortcut,
Oh no.
like a kid would, and I took the bottle opener and I was doing it in the fridge,
Oh no.
and it reached back and contacted that light bulb because it had a spot for two, and I had a
Oh.
black hand for a week. But you
Oh
know
my
what?
God.
I learned electricity.
Right. And I mean, we all like. I remember the first time I was uh baiting. I was baiting some shrimp to use as bait,
Yeah.
and I hooked my finger, and I got that whole fish hook into the side. I still have the scar from where I was, putting in the hook, and oh my God, like it went right through my finger, and I was shocked, of course, shocked. But I never, after
Hmm.
that, when I was baiting, I made mind to watch where I had the fucking shrimp. Um, so when I was baiting the shrimp bait, I wasn't so close to my fingers as I would be doing it before. I had bad habits when it came to baiting. So it was like you have to learn. My grandfather was like, "Well, now you know." Like I had.
Yeah.
I mean, the blood was bad because you know how fingers are when you cut one.
Oh yeah.
But it was a life lesson.
Yeah.
And
Now you know to push down to get
yes,
that hook out.
and don't be a dumbass. Like I was
Pay attention.
exactly. Pay attention to what your hands are doing and where your fingers are at all times, especially when you're fishing with like hooks and all different types of baiting and stuff. But these are the lessons you learn from childhood. I remember that very explicitly because I was horrified. Um, but it's when you don't have those older family members, it's like I reminisce on them frequently because I see my own kids, and just people in life in general. Like what would be the piece of advice here that would work? Like
Yeah.
to make me not react the way I want to. Because there's been times where I'm like, I want to hop on one of the kids about something, but I'm like, they have to learn. They have to learn how to do self sufficiency and
Yeah. Like, what's the lesson here, kind of a thing.
exactly, and like learning
Okay.
to back off. And like I'll stop myself. There's been times where I'm like, about especially with my middle squirrel, he's special needs, so I coddle him sometimes where I shouldn't, and I'm like I need to just let go, and it's hard. It's harder with him than it was the other two because he's not a quote neurotypical child.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of learn to just shut up and just let him make a mistake, and let him deal with it. Learn how to self-regulate it. Learning because self-regulation is a hard thing for him. So if he gets upset, he doesn't know how to calm himself down naturally. So
Hmm.
I have to step back and let him figure it out, but help coach him a little bit at times, but learn to back. It's very tricky. It's a tight wire with children in general, but when you have a child that's a little different in that context, holy crap, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
got my
mhm,
nephew Julian. I was talking to you about earlier.
mhm,
He we try and keep things bilingual
mhm,
just because we can. He's half Mexican.
mhm.
I don't know the PC term. I'm not very
That's
PC.
fine.
Hispanic, whatever. I'm not trying to offend anybody. Just trying to get the point across. But he's not at the point right now where he doesn't like to be touched. I kind of have the same
Ah,
thing.
okay,
If like I'll put up with being touched,
right.
like, but if I don't know you,
Yeah.
don't touch me.
Mhm.
Come up and say, hey, I'll shake your hand. I'll give you a good firm handshake, but don't try and put your hand on my shoulder and be like, all right, this is what. No, 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 no. Talk to me like an adult. But with him, I have to learn how like my Spanish isn't the greatest, but I know enough, and I have to walk both lines there
Right.
because he doesn't like to talk yet either. And when he does like to talk, he'll Spanglish,
Yeah.
bounce back and forth. So that's one of the reasons I've tried to learn so much, and it's another reason why like I've tried to get my niece to learn Spanish too.
Yeah.
So as a family, we kind of have this giant thing,
I think
and
I
it's
think that's great, especially for him to have, because I think it's important for children to know. My children are part Mexican also, and
Yeah.
I want them to know about their family heritage and like the because of where they're from originally in New Mexico, a lot of the family came from pueblos in Mexico. So knowing that history of where their families came from, why everyone kind of went separate ways. Sometimes that happens with immigration, but
Yeah.
to understand themselves comes from language. It comes from tradition, storytelling, and it's every one of us. Like as we get older, it's funny how our roles changed, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
we go from being those jackasses running around getting in trouble to suddenly having to be stepping into the shoes of our, slowly stepping into the shoes of what our parents have done in the past, and then eventually one day we'll be the elders, you know, and
I
recognizing
love
those
that word.
the elder, yeah.
Yeah, that's always the way I've kind of referred to it, and I think that kind of comes from the native side of me. Is it's always been elders.
Now, what is your native history? Because we did talk about this off air before.
Um, Basically, my native ancestry came along the Trail of Tears
Okay,
and wound up in Oklahoma, and it's Chickasaw.
yeah.
We aren't on the rolls, and Grandpa knew the name of the tribe and our like the actual like subset of the tribe and what our tribal name was, but he was also a jokester,
Mm-hmm.
and it was never something that was terribly important to me. Like I'm proud of my heritage, but it wasn't like I don't want to be crass, but pulling it out and swinging it around. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that here in Oklahoma. But well, one of the smart things the Chickasaws did here was they have most of the water rights.
Thank God.
Yeah, well, we Texas tried to take a lot of water. I can't lie,
It's
but
true.
yeah, you remember the Pickens plan? Sorry, going off on a tangent.
No, no, I do.
But yeah, it was he was going to put up wind farms all along one side, but the trade-off was underneath those wind farms was going to be a water, like giant water pipe to ship it all down to DFW. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, Chickasaw, and because of I don't know how many people know about it, but there used to be sterilization,
Yes.
like involuntary
Yes.
sterilization of Native women. Uh, if they deemed your IQ wasn't high enough, they could do other things to you too. So trying to protect the family, they got off the res and got
Mm-hmm.
off the rolls. So like I can get a tan darker than most people will ever have if I spend all day out in the sun.
Yeah. That's how I am
But
too.
to me, most of the people they can pick up on it because my cheekbones and lack of facial hair. But I mean, I also get crap because I have like blonde facial hair at that. That's the European side. But
Yeah.
yeah, I, I have an idea, but I don't like to speak without confirmation. I just know that I'm Chickasaw.
Yeah. It's interesting about the Chickasaw part because uh, my background is on Chippewa, which is on the other side of
Hmm.
the spectrum. The same, unfortunately, part of the same nations that were gathered up together.
Yeah,
Um,
they
my
they made the same trip.
Yeah, and everyone got split up and separated into different states. Um, along the Trail of Tears, if they were able to get the hell off of there and get
Yeah,
away, there was a lot of fear on from everything I've seen and heard from family. The little that I was given, let's put it that way. There's a tremendous amount of fear that went through the women and on the Chippewa side, and they did not acknowledge that they were Chippewa. Um, it was a big fear. The census reports were very clear that they were still, coming up as mixed or mulatto,
yeah,
and the hereditary traits were there. They still followed a lot of the minor traditions, but they tried to keep off the radar. And it's very painful for that side. Everything I've experienced, and I carry genetic issues that are related to blood of the mixing of European blood with native blood. That's the only explanation that I was given.
yeah. It's
Uh, but that was stuff I had to piece together because the family lived in fear for so many generations that it had a lasting effect on our family. And it's a painful memory. And it's sad because, you carry all these traits, and for years, you spend your entire life going, oh, well, I am a little different, and,
Yeah.
I don't fit in with this, and
You always kind of called yourself white, but you're like, I'm not quite.
I am not as, and honestly,
I'm semi-olive.
growing up, I didn't get mistaken for being fully
Yeah.
white.
No one ever called me out on it or said anything about it.
Yeah, like no one ever took me aside and said, "Oh, well, you're 100% white." Never got that feeling. They always asked, "Are you mixed?" And I was like, "Ah, yes. Ah, yes, my favorite question." You know,
Yeah, are
uh,
you
"Are
mixed?
you mixed?" Yeah. And
I'm
and
like,
and
oh, what am I, a fucking blender here?
right. And well, the assumption was I was part Hispanic in some way. That was their assumption. And
Yeah.
my hair is very different. I have the Chippewa hair. I've had it since I was born, and it didn't come from the other side of the native side, because you also carry another native side that you and I both have in common, actually. Um, is the Cherokee side.
Yeah.
So where
Cherokee's on the father's side.
okay, what state were they in for the Cherokee on your side of the family
Uh,
that you can remember? I guess.
to be honest with you, my time spent with my dad usually were repairing or tooling on something or fixing up something for a bar for free down in Texas, just because we like to stay busy. So I haven't really had a chance to narrow it down with him too much.
Right.
Um, like I really have no idea. I'd probably be better off asking my aunt Linda. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, aunt.
Aunt. Aunt. Yeah.
Aunt. I know that's a little bit of Jayhawk coming out because I did some of my learnings up in Kansas, so I have some what pretentious vocal qualities at points. But I know one of the reasons the Chickasaw side wasn't talked about too much was the almost the shame,
Yeah.
because the Cherokees were some of the first civilized tribes
Mm-hmm.
that started blending. But the Chickasaw, I don't know how many people know about it, but we were the ones kind of leading people across trails through the territory off the colonies.
Right.
So we were kind of their we we
Well,
were the contact guy, but also we
yeah,
were they would go out and they would also hunt the other tribes.
correct. Yeah.
So it's there's also a little bit of shame there too. So that's why I don't think it came up too often.
And honestly, that's kind of like the history of both, like, for as far as I know, is it's very similar with the Chippewa. The Chippewa had the French to
Hmm.
deal with.
Yeah,
So the French came over and they're like, "Hey, we'll give you guns if you'll help us do X, Y, and Z to get to these other tribes." And there was a lot of animosity against the Chippewa.
yeah. It
But
wasn't like Apache level bad, but
no, but it was
er,
it was bad.
s- still something that like it's a pot mark, you know.
Yeah, even to this day, there's still
That's
there's
very downplayed.
yeah, and it's a sad part of the ancestral history there, and I think the shame that was associated, because they were on they got off the Trail of Tears somehow. My family managed that part of the family, and the Chippewas, like, got the hell out of there, and I think they were keeping a very low profile because they just didn't want to go to a concentration camp. In the end,
Yeah,
they knew that that Trail of Tears was exactly that, and the forced sterilizations and things that have went on over the years, eugenics wise as well, not just with natives but with other minorities, of course. But it's a sad part
uh,
of history,
yeah,
and it made a permanent indent. And the Cherokee side of my paternal side, that alcoholism absolutely tore apart that side of my family, and to this day, it has torn apart my family. And it's so bad that when I did genealogy, I was finding records of them getting into bar brawls with other
you too.
people. Oh yeah,
Oh man,
and this was like from the 1800s of them getting into bar brawls because of them being natives in a white bar.
yeah. It's one of the oddball things I have is my mother's maiden name is Vineyard,
Okay.
but that comes from my grandfather. But Oklahoma is still a very young state. Most people, like, it's only 112 years old,
Right.
and in the grand scheme of things, like we're coming up on the tricentennial in 2076. So maybe some people want to do the math and figure it out, but yeah, it's not even half as old as that nation.
Wow.
But we owned one of the first bars and lost it in a poker game. But one of the first giant territorial saloons in Oklahoma was owned by the Vineyards.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I also have bishops and masoners, and there's like an entire section of the city. Like I don't even like when I feel like looking for someone to be with, I have to avoid that side because it's nothing but some kind of distant blood.
Right. Oh, and that's like that's like one part of my family is like that, and it's like, oh crap, we're cousins.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
like, oh, we're
oh,
cousins. Dodged a bullet on that one.
yeah,
I actually wound up dating one girl, and I didn't find out till after things had happened that her last name was Vineyard, and I'm like, Vineyard, the Oklahoma Vineyards, no, New Mexico Vineyards. Oh,
oh
thank
God,
Jesus.
right. You're like, okay, different strain, thank you God. Oh,
Right?
it's just like that's the kind of stuff. It's like really to me,
Yeah,
like
nobody wants to be uncle, brother, daddy, cousin, papa.
exactly. Let's not go down the country road literally and have like a one, what is it, one stick coming out of the ground and there's your family tree, you know?
Yeah, the
Man.
bamboo shoot.
Yeah, there's my family tree right there. You know, it's
There's a couple of leaves, but it's not really splitting off.
exactly. It's like I think when you look at like so much about the our family histories and like where things pop up, you know, it's interesting what we acquire because we're earlier we also mentioned where Mark kind of stepped on a little bit briefly is it certain things that you inherit from family that
Yeah.
you don't realize. I mean, you had said a phrase.
Yeah, I believe in inherited knowledge, like genetic knowledge, I
I
guess would
think
be another way
that's
of saying it.
a very interesting point.
And it's like a lot of people will call phooey, but I like I'll do a quick rundown. My dad
Mhm.
signed away his rights to me when I was 8 months old. I didn't wind up even trying to engage him or contact him until I was about 26, 27.
Mhm.
But there was things about myself that made zero sense. Like I loved dragons, but my mom never had any kind of fantasy lore in the house. Never watched any kind of fantasy kind of movies. I think the closest we came to that was Excalibur, if
Right.
you remember that awesomely
Yes.
80s movie.
I do
And
remember.
like I loved dragons. And she was like, eventually she broke down around when I was 16. She's like, God damn it, you like
Mhm.
dragons just like your father. And it's like, what?
Right.
And then like things like my temper and like I have a very low threshold for bullshit. If I know you're lying,
Mhm.
yeah. But if you're trying to aggravate me, I have a slower burn,
Right.
if that makes sense. Like if I can recognize you as a threat, I'll deal with it.
Right.
But if I realize you're not a threat, I think the greatest thing my dad has taught me is if it's not worth engaging in the argument, just tell him, you know what, you're right.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
those simple words can end so much frustration. And there's enough hostility and anger out there in the world, let alone the frickin' internet right now,
Right. Exactly.
that it's not worth it. To me, I think, well, in my opinion, the number one thing that kills like is stress.
Yes. Oh God, yeah.
Everything leads back to stress. And my family, they didn't really have any like all of them passed away due to congestive heart failure.
Mm.
So to me, stress is something I need to mitigate.
I think
I have to make sure I keep that at a the anger stress.
yes.
Like I love to be pushed outside of my comfort level because I feel that's another good way to learn, but that's also trial by fire. But when I get jobs where it's like, hey, you know what, show up on this day, and it's like, okay,
Right.
and it's like, oh, well, this is what you're doing. Let's see what you got. Well, like I love that's one of the things I loved about being a DJ was the audition.
Mhm.
And it's like I don't want to hear what kind of bullshit you're gonna brag about yourself on a piece of paper or lie about. Get up there, let me see what you can do.
Right.
And yeah, like at any given time, I can pull out the DJ voice, and some people enjoy it. And almost at this point, it's become passe, so it's not really used on the radio. People enjoy banter, like right now, where we're just talking in our normal voice.
Right.
Like I can pop off into the game show host and everything else. It's just there's no need unless I'm doing the entertainer
Mm-hmm.
kind of position.
And
I don't use it.
and the truth is too is like we are in a different time period now where because of the internet, because the internet's kind of developed, not just a distancing between people, but
Yes.
just the reality has been flawed. That people are seeking. It's so bad that we have reality television,
Oh,
and geez, and that's about as
yeah.
reality
I've
based as a fake pair of tits. It doesn't mean anything. It's just
yeah.
decorative.
It's all scripted.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I will like I loved wrestling as a kid, and
Right.
like I knew it was scripted, and until I actually got into stage acting, like where they taught us how to take the roles and everything, like I was like, oh my god, okay, yeah. But it's a lot of people have taken the internet and warped it. Like to me, it's a that it used to be knowledge is power,
Right.
and there used to be barriers to knowledge, like university and other things like that. Now you can find anything on the internet, and it's a double edged sword. You know what I'm talking about? Like if you
Yes.
need info, you can jump on YouTube. One time I figured out how to change a front axle on a Mini Cooper.
Oh yeah.
After like 30 minutes, I'm like, that it's that? Oh, okay. And 90% of what I do on my channel, if I don't know what I'm talking about, I'll research it. But there's also the people that abuse the anonymity of the internet. Like
Yes.
I fully support women with their if they don't want to show their face, that is
Mm-hmm.
the smartest thing you can ever do. Don't sell yourself just to just to get a few likes. I've had a few disagreements recently with one of my YouTube neighbors, and I didn't have time to do a project, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but what I have to do is more important than likes. Yeah, perceived clout, I think is the way you said it earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's a lot of that perceptions of what
Yeah.
clout is and like what people need to do to somehow attain it. So that means they're going to step on other people. They may sell themselves out. They may not brand themselves, but instead try to take from others.
Oh,
And
yes. The
and
thievery.
yes, and it's silliness because in the end, I'm like, what sells is being. You cannot replicate genuineness, and
Yeah, you have to be genuine.
you cannot replicate being authentic. Being an authentic individual. If you are fake, the truth is, like when I meet people in real life, I'm even louder than I am on the computer. Um, I'm always polite, of course, and I know not to throw the F word around a little bit because I'm not an idiot. But at the same
Uh,
time, I observe people a lot. I pay attention. I may not say anything, but I'm paying attention. But it's always about being genuine to some greater extent. If I don't, I pick my battles like any normal human being does, and everyone
yeah.
else too. But the internet has allowed a lot of inappropriate behavior to become appropriate and given permission slips to people to be something that they are not because they want to be part of the cool kids.
Yeah.
And
And it seems like they will completely go against like almost everything they actually are. Because there's people I've met in real life that are like real celebrities, and it's like, whoa,
mhm.
that's not what I expected at all. And they're like, yeah, I know, I'm kind of geeky and nerdy. I'm like, no, that's the awesome part about you.
Right.
Like I would love for that to be a more fleshed out thing, but I understand you have to have a duality. Like you can't tell everybody 100% about yourself. Like
Right.
I focus largely on just telling the truth
Right.
because it's me and my buddy used to do production and stuff on the internet for people, and we're like, yeah, we can polish a turd, but eventually that that shine's going to wear off, and people are going to see it for what it is.
Absolutely. because in the end, it's very hard to keep up because especially in workplaces, this is just it's weird because the internet has kind of splashed into reality as well. It's just
Yes.
people have always been this way. The only reason why it's worse now is because the the interpersonalities of those who are trying to be something they're not, the fake and superficiality will pour out of them inevitably. So when that happens, all you got to do is step back and just let it splash. Just make sure you don't get it on you.
Yeah.
And not trying to be a dick, but it's I've seen it over and over again in real life. It happens. We call it karma,
Yeah.
but it happens. There's a cycle. So if you're being someone you're not, or putting on a persona of something that you're not, like I prefer to get along with people overall. But if I
Yeah.
feel like
That's
they're coming from a place that's not good, or they're trying to manipulate, and I'm aware of manipulators. There's some people that have been in my life, especially that they come in at you. I'm sure you have too, where they come at you
oh
a certain
yes.
way and they don't think you're smart enough to notice. And I'm like, manipulators make the first mistake by assuming intelligence.
Yeah. A lot of people will because of my howdy and my y'all and just my general vernacular that I use on a day-to-day basis, they think I'm dumb. They're like, no, not even. I was a 3.75 student, and I don't even remember what I tested out at on some of the tests, but I choose to be this way because it's simpler and it's easier to just be real. Like I'm sure I could let just if I just talked, like I could sell cars all day long. It's like I had a job as a carney up at Frontier City. It's a little offshoot of Six Flags for those of
Mm-hmm.
y'all don't know. But I was a carnival barker, and
Mm.
I had to quit because after taking X amount of money, like once I knew that they'd essentially paid for like 10 or 20 of these freaking dolls. I'd be like, okay, here's what you want to do. You want to get that softball in the milk urn, underhand, or I'd tell them how to lower their center of gravity to climb up the ladder, the rope ladder that spins, or that if they wanted to, I'm like, if they wanted to do trying to shoot the star out
Right.
on the BB gun, I'd be like, okay, here's the thing. If you can do it, more power to you, but you have to trace around that star. So if you just want to shoot, go for it. That's fun. But I was too realistic with people. Like I don't like lying.
Well,
To me, it feels like it puts like a weight on your heart.
it does. And I think I had this conversation before with somebody recent. I'm trying to think. It might have been the
Really?
com squirrel. Um,
Oh, okay.
because com squirrel is the husband squirrel. But for the
Understood.
audience too, yeah. In case nobody knows who com squirrel is, it's a nickname that Ancient One gave him, and it completely fits the man. So, or squirrel, whatever. So, you know, but it, it's when somebody let's say opportunistic, because I'm sure you've made this comment too, like where you're like, how the hell is this
Opportunistic or predatory?
both?
Okay.
But like there's I'm sure you've used this phrase, how the hell did that guy get that job being that person?
Oh, yeah, like not like the people who parents like they
Mm-hmm.
own the business, but the person that flat out lied
Yes.
on their resume. Like I used to be a manager, so I'd go through a lot of them, and like they'd write down languages, and I kind of I mostly speak German, French, and my Spanish is kitchen Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
But I would ask them like just general questions. Like most people that speak German will say ja instead of yes, or like it's a very distinctive ja
Correct.
instead of ya like ya. But French, you can also tell, and like I would try and find ways to I would give them the rope to hang themselves,
Yes.
but I would also give them the knife to save themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of
I'm like,
being a little objective.
come clean.
Right. Right.
But I mean,
Exactly.
in that position, I had to do that just because some of the jobs I've been involved in. running clubs and bars and lots of inventory where there's a high loss
Right.
in the inventory. It's like, okay, I don't, I'm not going to judge you if you've had your past. If you've done something, you've done something.
Mhm.
It, I mean, I don't care, but just be honest about it. And people can tell when you're like, I can tell when someone's hiding something
Right.
just by the way their voice fluctuates. There's not a natural, like the almost wave you get when someone actually converses with you.
Right.
There's they change the way they talk, like
Yes.
upward inflections or downward inflections, stuff like that.
And also there's that apologetic tone.
Yes,
And it's not, I don't know how to
like they're
explain it.
already apologizing for lying to you.
Yes,
Like they already know they're caught
they're apologetic, but then
before anything even happens.
what's the word? They're apologetic, and then there's a hint. In some cases, there's this hint of self pity. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I lit myself on fire." Like, what a bummer. Like, motherfucker, you had the gas can in the match. I know.
Like I don't know, but the way you said that, I straight went. I went to catch a predator.
Yes.
Oh, I was gonna tell her it's not safe to do. Bullshit.
It's the
Bullshit.
same tone. It's and you hear it. You can hear it in people's voices. They'll start to say it, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I caught that, and I'm paying
Yeah.
attention because it's like when you like this is. I think it's from being very observant in general. Not always right, but definitely the flags are there, and that's how I
So
look at it.
did what was for me, like I watched people a lot because I moved around a lot as a child.
Mhm.
So I'm not like I won't fake who I am, but I
Right.
will sit back in a group and I will observe.
Yes.
And like I'll be like, okay, that's this person. Because another thing I found moving around a lot is it's gonna sound very cheap, but we are unique people, but
Mhm.
our characters and kind of the roles that we fit into, the jokester, the jock, everything like that, it's repeated. And 9 times out of 10, they almost have the same name.
Yeah.
Like if Adam, what do you think of when you say an Adam? Kind of like more of a sportsy kind of a guy.
Right.
Josh's tend to be jokesters,
That's
and
true.
it's just like you can tell. Like I've just got I've got a knack for reading people, and like the DJ work I did, like it's DJing isn't playing music; it's reading people, it's reading the crowd. So being able to figure out who's false and who's real, and who is just flat out lying,
Mhm.
which gentlemen's clubs, that's that's just the way it is.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Guys go there to try and be somebody else, try on a different persona. I get it,
Right. Because
but
they
that doesn't mean I have to accept it. You know?
correct. And I think when people are, uh, I think I get what do you call it? When I guess it's hard to explain this properly, but when I'm in person and someone's speaking to me, I look. I've always looked younger than my age, so they talk to me a certain way. That
Oh, like talking down,
uh-huh.
or just kind of.
Or because of my personality, like I do laugh a lot. I laugh when I get pissed too.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I get
it's a
that, and it
coping
freaks
mechanism.
people right the hell out.
Yeah, I just start. I laugh. I laugh when I'm irritated. I laugh when I'm gonna
Yeah.
say something, and
Don't
because
worry when I'm quiet. Worry when I'm laughing,
yeah, like
because I'm past the quiet point. I'm
if
like,
I'm
okay,
when I
this
get pissed
shit's about
off,
to come out.
if I get pissed off, I walk away because it's my way of resetting. Because like you and I both were very similar in that context. We had talked about that. It's like when we get angry, we just step away and you go, you know what? I'm gonna say something stupid that I'm gonna have to apologize because I sunk down to a level I don't want to be at.
Yeah, like my Twitter thing.
I think.
There's times where I regret it,
Mhm.
but there's also times when I realize that it was probably necessary. And I'd also go back to it goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to call people out on their bullshit, and that's kind of what your grandparents are there for. You
Yes.
know, Grandpa only had to spank me once when he caught me lighting a fire. But you know what? I remember that day. Grandma only had to spank me once. I don't remember what it was about, but I remember grabbing that rose bush switch.
Yeah, and in the end too, it's
Like,
we learn from our interactions with people a lot because you're watching people, and
Yeah.
I interact and I'll talk to people because I do believe that everyone, and this is where I get angry at people in a general sense. I believe that everyone has an intellectual value. I do believe that
Yes.
every single person does. Um, and even if we're talking about the blazing alcoholics and to the drug addicts, when they're clear, their head is clear, and they're not reliant on pills or whatever they're taking. There is some emotional intelligence going on. There is obviously a form of intelligence because they're walking the planet. Okay.
Yeah. I always
Um,
feel like everybody has something to add or something that you can learn from
right.
them.
Exactly.
There's always a lesson,
And even
even if it's a bad one.
correct. Even if there's something like there are certain people that you absolutely should stay away from because
Uh,
they well because they
Say
bring
it again for the guy in the back.
right. There's just some people you need to not open your door to because they're going to bring shit with them.
Yeah.
And you can see the red flags from the beginning. Like there's some outstanding people I have met, but I would sure as hell not have them around my kids. You know, and
Yes.
that's in life in general. There's certain I have friends that they're great people, but they we have a mutual understanding that they are not going to be meeting my children because of the shit that they have involved themselves in is a threat to safety or a threat to themselves or to me or whoever. It's very different if it's just one on one. If I didn't have uh, little ones, you know, um, yeah, they could come have Thanksgiving with us. I'm not that kind of a hater person, but
Yeah.
because of the kids, you have to think of your children first and then yourself second, and that is the point of parenting. It is not about you first and filling your pockets. It's about filling the pockets of your children to some extent, but having them work, fail, and learn from those mistakes so they can be better people. Because your job as a parent, and this is me having a rant, excuse me, your job
No
as a parent,
worries.
and I cannot repeat this enough, is that your job as a parent is to ensure that your children will be able to live on this planet when you're fucking dead. That is your job. So
Yes.
you see all these generations of kids freaking out about words. What the hell are these idiots going to do if, God forbid, there was actually a huge event in this country that required us to go to physical war? You going to cry because you have to go to physical war? You didn't think that was it? Human beings are not reliable. Okay, number one. Number
Yeah.
two, we are still animalistic. We're still very tribalistic in every sense of the word. It is us versus them. It always has been. That's what politics has tried to replace in tribal, mentality. But
Hmm.
the fact that there's so many people that are so going back to, and I'm swinging this back, there are so many people who do not know how to speak to one another, but yet empathize or understand that there are people
Yes.
on YouTube or on Twitter that have neurological issues. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't make them dumb. It doesn't make them less of a human being. It just makes it a little different. It makes it a little complicated sometimes if you don't understand because it's a learning process. Um,
Yeah.
and
That's one of the
yeah,
reasons why I'll always choose to engage with someone whose native language is not English
absolutely.
because I can learn.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, like there's so much knowledge I can learn from that person, and I can help them. And it's not like neither one of us are taking more than we're giving, you know.
Correct.
But I'll always seek to engage people like uh, we had a Down syndrome kid when I was younger, and he went to our school, and I always chose to engage him
Yeah.
just because I knew he wasn't dumb. He would
Mm-hmm.
try and get away with shit and play it off. I'm like, you're not dumb.
Mm-mm. No.
I've seen what you can do. Like I've seen your drawings, I've seen your projects.
Yeah.
Because like back before everybody had a cell phone to take a picture and bring it to school, you actually had show and tell day.
Right. It's true.
And like you saw, like you could actually see the real person in their projects. And that's kind of the way I feel about YouTube and everything in general. Like I'm the nicest person you'll never know just because I have a very short social battery. But I will always engage people and check up on them. Like I have a lot of gamers that I keep in contact with, and I never make it a big thing. Like if you see me supporting somebody on my channel, it's not because like I'm getting something out of it. Like I enjoyed their work. Like I always try and help people pursue anything creative
Mm-hmm.
because I know that could be the thing that maybe saves them that day, you know?
Right.
because there's like I get depressed as hell. I get seasonal depression. I have issues constantly, but I don't let it get to me because
Yeah.
I know that I can always turn it around. Like I'll throw on some music, do some music therapy, and within 5 minutes, I'm generally good. Still not exactly happy, but I'm not,
Well, you're not
down.
miserable.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not miserable anymore. I'm not hating myself. I'm like I'm a talking monkey on a giant organic spaceship going through the galaxy.
Right.
I'm not going to take it seriously. Like
Exactly.
you got to step back and laugh, but you also have to like to me like being the best human you can be. You have to like when you see somebody that has needs,
Mm-hmm.
like you have to go out like if you don't try and engage them because like I remember like when we were kids like it was
Mm.
it seemed like people almost feared them
I was just gonna say that. I remember.
like they'd catch
Oh,
it.
yeah. They would separate the kids that were, let's say, Downs or have MS or whatever it is. They'd separate them into special education, and
Yeah.
they would be the first. They would be like the first ones in and the last ones out during an assembly.
Hmm.
They would always keep them segregated from the other children, and there was never a real discussion about disabilities or understanding neurological differences. Um, it
Yeah,
was
it was all categorized under the R word,
correct,
which
and
to me, like I took music, to me, it's not a horrible word unless you're using it in a certain juxtaposition. But
it's a depending on how you use it, and even though it is a clinical term, unfortunately,
yeah,
um, it's a degrading word, but it is about context of words, of course, in every case. And I, I've been like, let's say this, I, I've been observing behavior on certain particular groups of people that are interacting with certain individuals and have been, and also several other individuals that are
yes,
neurodiverse. And I'm using the word neurodiverse because I can't name all of the different, you know, uh,
I think we all know.
yeah, I mean, there's different types of categories. There's different things, whether that be real life autism,
Hmm.
um, or people who are actually struggling with handicaps in some way of how they interact daily with the quote the normal world. So they've been targeted and harassed and had things said to them, and people don't understand that just because this person, let's say they aren't a good person, let's say they're acting like an asshole. I mean, people who have issues can be assholes. That's life. We're human.
Yeah,
But at the same time, you need to make a filter in your head and realize that this person is not working on all cylinders, and you're fighting against a handicapped bull in a fighting ring.
hmm,
That seems like if you were a bullfighter, why are you fighting a bull that has a leg that does not work nor eyes that can see, and then feeling successful when you are holding up their bloodied head? It does
exactly.
not bring you any respect. It brings you no honor. And in the end, they think everyone believes they're untouchable to a point, depending on the amount of cult behind them. Meaning, whatever cultism they have behind them, they think makes them untouchable. But the reality is, you don't know who you're fucking with. That's
Yeah,
the internet. You never know.
exactly.
Just like when you worked with DJing, you don't know who's gonna walk through that door.
Yeah, there's
You know?
like I believe it came up during Moira's stream one time where we were talking about pepper spray and how someone used to just hot sauce. I'm like, I've been pepper sprayed so many times, and not because I was doing anything wrong,
Mm,
but because the way I'm wired, I run to the battle. Like if I see something wrong, I will call it out for what it is. Like I
right.
will always defend somebody when they're in a bad position. But I kind of like I've been hit with pepper spray, been hit with OCP, which
Oh.
is it's like a step up above pepper spray.
Oh God.
And then you have various concentrations, and I've been hit with 10x and 50x.
Oh my
50x
God.
will make your life agony because
Yes.
the first time I didn't know like I was like okay it's been 15 minutes nothing's burning anymore and I went to the men's room.
Oh no.
Yeah, didn't wash my hands first.
Oh God. Oh.
Yeah, that's a spicy meatball.
Oh God.
Mommy, it burns.
Oh no. So did this stuff
But
happen when you were working in the club? Like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God.
Every time I've been hit, it I was working in a club, and the sad thing is I wasn't functioning as the doorman or bouncer. One time it was as a manager, and the other time it was well, the other two times actually, sorry, was as a DJ.
Mm.
And it would be some of the clubs I worked in were so small, it was bartender slash manager, doorman, DJ.
Oh,
And just
okay.
because of my size, like brick shithouse here, like I'm 6 foot, and I'll run between 210, 220
Mhm.
at my summer weight, and I'll get 230, 240. Don't judge me, people. I like my holiday foods, but I always like I'm realistic about it, and I get out there and burn it back off. But I've always kind of had an intimidating look, I guess, and that either it's the piercings
Right.
or the tattoos. Like I have a thing for black and gray tattoos,
Right.
and like I have one arm fully covered. I have a couple of color tattoos, but a lot of people see them and they instantly think prison tat. It's like nope.
Yeah.
Uh, I've seen the quality that can come out of those places, and I'm gonna pass,
Yeah.
even if it's free.
It's free for a reason.
You know what? Keep your Hep C and
Yeah.
your guitar string and your pen, and I'm gonna wait till I'm out.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's like no, 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 I'm good. But I've just always kind of had an intimidating look about me,
Mhm.
and it lends towards me a lot. Like I know how to use my voice as a weapon, which sadly can be bad.
Right.
There's times I find myself putting my foot in my mouth at times because I'll. It's like we said, reading people. Nine
Right.
times out of ten, I can figure out what somebody's biggest fear or weakness is, and I can call them out on it. And if you do that, there's times when they choose to get violent, and I'm usually the person who like I will talk to you until I'm hoarse if I can to try and calm you down.
Mhm.
Because Lord knows, like I don't want to kick you out of this bar. You're drunk.
Right.
But if you can't figure out how to behave, I'm gonna have to. And you know what that does? That increases your chance for a Dewey. Because
Right.
I saw you drive up. I'm sitting there watching the cameras. I don't want to put you 5 to 3 grand in debt
Right.
because you made one stupid decision. I'm gonna give you a chance, but if you mess that up,
Yeah.
it's gone. Like I will throw you out. Yeah, I've had fellow DJs where the bar had to switch to non-glass drinkware
Oh.
because he was an old biker, but he ran with the Rogues, but he wound up getting his face slash neck was cut open from the bottom of his ear down to his jawline, and that doesn't
Oh.
sound like a lot.
Oh my God.
But if you know your anatomy and you know how much blood is pumping through that general portion of the body, you're like,
Right.
oh Lord, and yeah, it's stuck pig
Oh my God.
everywhere. And like I because of my work in the cemeteries, I come in and be like, all right, we need ammonia, we need bleach.
Oh my God.
We're gonna cancel this shit out. I'm not gonna ask you like you're clean, right? And like read them and be like, okay, give me the gloves.
Right.
But I've always kind of been that kind of a person, even if it bites me in the ass.
Yeah. I think when it comes to you know when you okay when you have a lot of people and there's a lot of different personalities, there's gonna be a couple of them that are just gonna be hard around the edges, but in the
Oh
end,
yeah,
like I
they're
remember
still good people.
exactly. Like I remember I worked with a few people at this one company, and they hired, let's say this, they hired a lot of colorful people, and one of the people, there was a couple of them, and they were bikers actually. They all had a group.
Like biker
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
weekend.
no, biker.
Okay.
They lived in communities together,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So this was a full-time gig since they were, God, like I imagine when they were much younger adults. So it was a way
Yeah,
of
it's not like
life.
today.
Yeah, it's very different. But they grew up in those communities and things like that. And one of the women, like from the beginning, her and I always got along. But she used to scare the hell out of like quite a few people. And just because she was hard around the edges, man. Like
Yeah.
she come at somebody a certain way because she knew how to take care of herself, like obvious reasons. And she was through and through a biker chick, which she'd always laugh about because she's like, "Yep, that's me." So, but she never like she was very humble, but she also was no bullshit. And uh, there were several instances where there were people who just wanted to get her out of there
Yeah.
just because they don't like her, and
Like
uh,
male?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. I understand what you're talking about now.
So they would want to get rid of her and like try to like put her in situations where like random drug testing. She didn't do
Oh yeah.
drugs. She didn't do drugs. So she's like, okay, like whoop de fucking do, motherfucker.
Yeah.
She's
It seems like there's a propensity for like I don't really even know if it's still around today. Well, yeah, to a point, but a lot of guys will be intimidated by a strong woman.
yeah, and
And it's like, why? We're all equals. I
well,
mean, just because she might be able to kick your ass, don't piss her off, dummy.
well,
But that also comes back to just knowing how to behave in society.
exactly. And I think too, it's there. This is a that's a good thought too, is that I've had this conversation with some female friends who they were not raised well, meaning they weren't raised to be empowered in themselves at all, no confidence
Okay.
whatsoever. And so they end up in bad relationships or they put themselves there, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Um, but they don't know how to be self sufficient or
Yeah, they don't know how to operate.
correct. And they don't know how to there's no sense of self preservation. They don't, I'm polite to a point, and it's sometimes at a fault. But if I feel like someone is overstepping themselves, I'll immediately come in and say, nah, no,
Hmm.
it's fine. Um, the moment that, I don't know how to say this properly, but like because of how I was brought up, like I said to you earlier, when I was brought up, I never once was treated like I was less of a person because I was a female. It was the
Yeah.
world outside of my household that did that. So the moment that I had males interrupting me when I was speaking for the first time, I would interrupt them back, and I would just finish what the
Nice.
hell I was saying. And then one guy, I had this one coworker when I worked in mortgaging, terrible job. There was plenty of that type of shit there. It is what it is. It's mostly male.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. And female loan officers were really awesome. I had very few of them that were assholes at all. Like all of them are really pretty chill. But some of the males had their issues. And this one guy had an issue with sitting on my desk.
Ooh,
Um,
what?
yeah, like sitting on my desk when I was in the middle of doing something and thinking
Oh.
that by doing so that I would stop whatever I was doing somehow
Yeah,
because
that he was entitled to your
correct.
attention.
And yes, and I finally one day I said I told him if he didn't get his STD ass off my fucking desk, I was gonna fucking kill him like with my shoe with love in Minecraft. I wasn't like because he wouldn't leave me alone, and
Yeah.
he was a big dude, height, and I'm not a big person by any means, and he was doing that type of shit, and I just looked. I said, "Didn't your mom ever teach you shit?" Like,
Right.
and I called him out for the behavior in front of everyone. I didn't care. I was like, "You need to leave me alone." And I usually am pretty easygoing. I like humor. I would rather things be pretty chill and make jokes and everyone be
Yeah.
fine. It's just when people put me in a bad position is when I'm done. Like, nah, don't what do you call it? Don't mistaken my kindness for weakness.
Yes.
And I think that that's because of my appearance, um, there's that immediate assumption that I'm not like I'm someone you can fuck with in some cases. It's gotten less and less over the years because I'm just more vocal. Um,
Hmm.
but at that time though, it was like I just told him to go fuck himself, and I've had really terrible things said, but it's as a female being empowered is not about crying to someone else to fix it for you.
Right.
I
Oh.
learned very early on that I could not depend on any, and not to be a dick, but because it was just me and a little boy, I had to. I wasn't. There's no way to fill those two roles.
Yeah.
But you have to play the role that you are given the best you can to the best of your ability. So that means whatever example that I lead as a female is what my son should expect or look for in the woman that he is with, meaning someone who's respectful, you know, courteous, has some layer of some kind of class, okay, can function in a professional environment, deal with difficult people, know how to handle people, and learn how to read people. And these are all things that I've taught him. Now, over time, he's going to learn the hard way on quite a few things, like we all did in our younger days, like being young adults. But
Yes.
in the end, though, those are the tools that'll guide the child. But it was learning to not depend on other people to come to my rescue. Like being in a city, you learn that very quickly, and I think that helped tremendously as I got older, learning how to take care of myself, especially if something weird happened, like being approached at a vehicle or being followed, things like that. It does happen, and not all women talk about it. And it's not to be. I don't like to be a victim, and
Yeah.
that I think I think it's ridiculous. In the end, I wasn't a victim. That person was a victim after things happened to them because of the result of their own actions, not me. So fuck them. So in the end,
Yeah.
it's on the female, and just as it is on a male or anyone else, to have a sense of confidence and responsibility. It's very hard though if you don't have the toolbox for that. And when we're growing up, it's like either we have that support to be better people or we don't. And then sometimes we have to seek it out. You know, um, the comment you made
Yeah.
about your grandpa going to, well, your pa, what
Uh,
pap,
Pap.
pap. When you went
Yeah.
to your pap, he was filling a big need, and that
Uh,
was the wisdom.
uh,
You know,
yeah. Pap was like, don't get me wrong, Grandpa taught me so much.
right.
But Pap, it was kind of, I guess the more, I hate the word normal,
Mhm.
kind of what people think of with their grandpa. Like he'd pull a coin from behind your ear and then give it to you,
Right.
or like it was more of the friendship grandfather role.
Mhm.
But he taught me, like my grandpa didn't like, he wasn't big on guns.
Right.
But like Pap was, like, he was a hunter, he was a fisher,
Mhm.
uh, and he was very avid about it. Actually, one of my prized possessions right now is I still have his Dodge Dakota, his '92 Dodge Dakota that he went fishing in all the time. So I get to drive that because we went like fishing over in uh,
Mhm.
the town he lived in. Sorry, I'm trying not to place myself too much, just because other people know I'm close to other YouTubers. Um, but we'd go to this little pond in the little '92 Dakota, and that thing has 247,000 miles on it. And if you pull the dipstick on the oil, there's not a single scorch on it. Like it
Mm.
still rides like a dream. Like we've done a few upgrades to it, but it was the traditional kind of wealth of knowledge.
Mhm.
Like Grandpa taught me, like, just how to be a stubborn SOB
Mhm.
when it comes to doing a job. If it's heavy, okay, back off, take a couple minutes, get yourself a sip of water, get back out there, bear hug that thing, and move it.
Right.
That's like Moira's the only person who's really got to see me just kind of manhandle my way through some of the situations out here on the property. I live on about 5 acres,
Mhm.
and as country as that sounds, it's like I'm still, it's almost citry, as much as I hate that word too. It's I'm surrounded by a gigantic metro, and there's lots of development going on to the east of me and to the west. But here in this little bitty town, it's one of the few original towns. It was one of the first train depots, so it's all still large tracts of land,
Mm.
unless it's been subdivided. But
Right.
you have to learn how to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
If last year, just to take you off on a story, I have a I have a zero turn mower, and it leaks a little bit of oil, but my mom hadn't been able to get get the fields knocked down, and so I was out there, and stuff's about 4 foot tall, and it builds up around the exhaust. And I wasn't paying attention too much. I had my headphones in. Well, no, at that point I had my silencer muffs on because the thing's loud.
Mhm.
It's like a 60-inch deck, and it sounds like a 747 taking off. But
Oh God.
yeah, like I'm not truly paying attention, and I got my goggles on, so everything's kind of hazy with dust. All of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? Smells like something's burning.
Oh
I
no.
look back and it's on fire, and I'm like, I jump off it, and I'm like, oh shit. Okay, I got 30 seconds to make the decision. Do I drive it up to the house and put the fire out,
Right.
or do I let it burn right here to the ground? And because of the knowledge my grandpa had instilled in me, I was able to look at the smoke, and also my father at that point. But I was able to look at the smoke and like understand what the smoke was.
Right.
It wasn't gasoline. I'm not going to blow up. It's going to be scary.
Right.
It was only a little flame, but uh, I've been like I've worked around cremators. 2,000 degrees is nothing to me.
Right.
So like that little bitty flame is like, okay, it's not going to hurt me. I need to make sure I get that back up to the house, or I'm going to be down $6,000.
Right.
And it's just having the gumption to just get out there and do stuff. And
Well, I think that self sufficiency is something that that generation, especially that generation, that World War, I guess the greatest generation, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
that was 100% like being a man was like, I don't need a license to build that house, and they go out and build the fucking house. You know what I mean?
yeah, I'm kind of guilty of that myself because of what grandpa taught me. I'm aware of the loopholes. I don't have to go out and get a building permit to fix my well house as
Right.
long as it doesn't collapse.
Correct.
You can repair it as long as uh, as much as the day is long. Yeah,
Right.
you can fix it. But if you actually have to start from scratch, you have to bring it up to code.
Right.
Like there's one power line running out to the thing that runs the well pump and everything like that. So there's really nothing like that that I have to worry about.
Mhm.
But it's just having the knowledge of, well, here's one way you can do it, and here's the other way. The man slash government is going to try and get their cut,
Yep. Yep.
and it's just like I love him so much for what he taught me. Like I have, like he left me a 1970 postal Jeep.
Oh, that's cool.
That's one of my giant restoration projects, and I also have a big giant dump truck
Oh man.
that I've never told anybody about. It's it's tucked away, and honestly, I'm looking at about like 5 grand in industrial tires. So that's a
Oh.
project for like my 50s.
Yeah. I was
But
gonna
I mean,
say the
the
tires
only thing I
alone.
have to do is rebuild I think it's a small block 350 in it, the Chevy. Like that's all I really have to do. I just have to put the engine back together. Well, I have to strip it apart because it's sat out since he had his heart attack. But other than that, I mean,
I mean,
it's really nothing. But just getting out there and doing it.
right. And my grandfather was the same way. He loved building stuff, and I remember there was always because of that the Great Depression, how much it
Hmm.
influenced our grandparents. My grandfather was a hoarder, in a very nice word.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. Don't worry.
whew, and
Hoarders Anonymous.
man, he had like a big old like when I was a kid, we had a giant garage in the back, and he had this house. This it was something that he built, but it was meant
Hmm.
to be a garage. It was the size of a house, a small house,
Oh wow,
and
nice.
the thing was packed full of machinery. Just every type of anything you could imagine as far as tools or scrap he had, and
Hmm.
it was a disorder, but it was in his disorder, so he knew where everything was.
Yeah,
And
typical male fashion. We can always
absolutely.
tell you where that paperclip or penny is hanging out that you need, though.
Absolutely. And he'd find it, and I'm like, how the hell do you find anything in
How did you
here?
know where that was at?
It was a mess in there. But he had like
Yeah.
giant bins. He would recycle a lot. That was one thing with he collected cans and stuff. He used to go walking a lot. That was the other thing. My grandfather was of that generation, so
Yeah.
hey man, I got a lot of cool stuff when I was a kid,
Yeah.
from him just being himself, and he believed in saving everything, and like money, like a penny on the ground, you better not leave it, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
um, Not wasteful at all, and very simple. And he was always doing projects and getting into trouble, of course, with said
Yes.
projects. And you get used to it as a kid. You're just like, yeah, there he is. There goes my papa. And then doing some crazy shit. And my grandmother's like, don't get involved. Don't do it. because he'd have me helping him do stuff, and Graham's like, I don't need you to be a
Yeah.
witness, I don't want you
Uh,
out there. But but he was always building things, and he could not idle hands. He couldn't do it.
yes.
And
Honestly, I have to stay busy like your grandfather.
mhm,
I will fall asleep if I am not engaged. So that's why I'm usually doing some project. And I'm guilty. Like, if I see something that I know is made of quality materials and it's not throwaway,
mhm,
like if I see pallets, like I will go inside and ask for them. I'm not the guy that just runs up and jacks stuff because I know there is a resale market for pallets.
right.
But I built a chicken coop earlier this year out of pallets,
Oh, that's cool.
and I did a raised chicken coop. I never got around to being able to do the roof or the siding on it, so I'll repair it again in the spring. But I don't even have chickens yet. It's the learning process. I love to fail,
Yeah.
and too many people are scared to fail. That's one of the reasons I kind of jumped into this YouTube stuff. It's like, you know what? I'm just sitting around doing nothing. I might as well at least learn.
And there's so many, like you were saying, like being able to find a YouTube video and being able to, let's say, rebuild a piece of an engine or
Yeah.
replace an ignition or whatever the case is. Like a few, I would say about 7, 8 years ago, my dad, he was like, I went on the Google and I went on the videos and in those words, and I fixed
I say the same thing, but
it's
just in irony.
exactly. He's like, I went on the Google, got the videos, and I fixed that ignition on my car. I saved myself like $500 or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, good. I said, I'm glad you used the Google and the videos. Good for you. And I was telling my dad, I'm like, go to YouTube. I'm like, you can honestly, you can learn all types of things. How to like, something as simple as like learning how to clean your air conditioner, your outdoor
Yeah.
air conditioner. Something as simple as that, or learning how to check for certain things in your automobile. If you're hearing a noise, what that could be. Not necessarily always able to fix it because of, let's say access to tools, but
Hmm.
having the idea of, okay, what am I looking at possibly here that this could be and how expensive could this be? And having professionals give their opinions and advice and hearing it from another person in a sense is, it's a bit of wisdom. And you're like, my God, all of these resources, it's kind of like having little pieces of our grandparents around.
Yeah. One of the things I try and do is I still call them pearls of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
just because my grandpa said that a lot. But I will, like, if I have an older friend, because I've never limited myself to age. It's just a freaking number. But I've had to take and teach my mom and my aunts how to properly Google search, if
Yes.
that makes sense, because there's
Yes.
like you can tell them, like, no, there's everything, anything you want to know. Sometimes you have to pay, but generally with the you generally with YouTube, you find a lot of people that are just doing it. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I know how to do this, and let's share the info.
It's kind of like the
And they
little
just don't know how to get to it.
correct. Exactly. Because it's those. I've told everyone, anybody can start a YouTube channel. Like, honestly, like, and do
Yeah, if you have a
something.
Gmail account, right?
Absolutely. If you have a Gmail account, you're good to go. You just go onto YouTube. You can set up your channel that way. Officially set up your channel, and then just start setting it up. And there are so many videos of walkthroughs now, where they can take you through the steps of how to set up things safely. That way, you're not over divulging, information maybe you don't want, or learning how to, let's say, stream or do a video
Yeah.
and posting, like learning how to post from your phone, streaming from your phone. Because of phones like being these little computers, it's made this world a lot smaller.
Oh yeah, it amazes me that we walk around with little bitty. I love Star Trek, so I'll go there. But little bitty communicators.
Mhm.
And like we have that technology in our pocket, and we have the collective information of all mankind available. And to
Correct.
me, what bothers me is that people use it to hurt each other.
Mhm.
It's like, why? Just
Human nature.
why?
It's
Well,
it's a
I know
sad thing.
you give monkeys sticks and they're going to beat each other, but
Yeah, they're not going to be building fires. They're probably going to
even if they're using words as sticks, but still, it's
exactly.
like, man, I like to think of what would be possible if everybody just put, pettiness aside for one year.
Right.
It would be insane. Like, give up, like, get over whatever ism or ollie or whatever self descriptor you've named yourself and just be like, we're all humans. Let's do something cool. Just for 1 year.
Exactly.
Let's see how far we can push society. And
Yeah.
like I know I know it's ingrained to have prejudices,
Mhm.
but being the bigger person, I don't even know if that's right. Being the, I guess, more open person,
Right.
it there's so much that's possible in the world. And like I honestly owe Moira like the biggest nod. Like I know I talk a lot about her, but she's kind of like my Yoda.
Mhm.
She like I owed her a movie because I was supposed to help her film a movie and we kind of lost contact. But we fell back into contact and she kind of gave me the grandparent kind of drop into the pool. I'm
Right.
jumping in after you if you can't swim, but let's see what you can do, kind of a thing.
Right.
And it's like it's amazing how much when we all get together we can do.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's, there's a lot of good parts to YouTube in that sense where you definitely meet a bit of everybody from everywhere. Like
Yes.
everyone has something they bring to the table, and you can also tell like when somebody doesn't have the best of intentions.
Oh
Um,
yeah, the shadow hand, as I like to call it.
yeah, and when those with the least of intentions where there's a compensation obviously at afoot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, there's something
Um,
lacking in their life that they're compensating for,
right.
I guess.
And so they kind of take it out on different people or
Hmm.
individuals. And in the end, it's sad because really the person you're hurting in the end, when the dust settles, is yourself.
Yeah.
Because the people come and go in life. That is a rotating door of how the world is. I was there with my grandparents when, as they were older because of age gaps. Um, I had them for as long as possible, but they were quite older, so I watched as all their friends passed away. I watched as those doors in their lives that had been open before with social events and functions closed.
Yeah.
And so when they get to that old age, or older age, sometimes it hits people sooner than later. They just had their family. And that was still depending on how family dynamics are, like, we've talked about.
Hmm.
That door might be big and it might be small. You might be only, maybe down to a few people or a handful of people in your life that you can trust. And it's sad because if you are a suspicious person throughout your life, or you're vindictive, or better yet, you're petty,
Yeah.
those things always, and mark my words from working in hospice, absolutely true, always
It
come up.
always comes back and gets them.
Absolutely. And it's the saddest thing in the world to see happen to someone because, I get to know a patient. I was, a client or family, patient's family, and I see the dynamics of all the hurt and pain from years prior and coming down to those, let's say, last year of that person's life, 6 months, weeks. You either see the best of humanity or you see the worst. And it's
Oh,
understanding both sides of that too at the same time. Like, why would this child do this to this parent, or why would the mother, refuse to see her children?
yeah.
And it's a lot to do with guilt and remorse and regret for things that had happened and just never got addressed properly because someone was not willing to come to the table authentically and genuinely. It just there. I think if you live authentically, you live genuinely, and you're not trying to put up a persona. And in the end, when people pretend to be someone that they're not, no matter what that, like whether it's a shadow hand behavior, um,
Hmm.
or it's pretending to be someone you're not for the sake of making friends through fake influence, um, you pay for the price because it shows in your genuine. It always shows in the end result.
Yeah. As much as I say karma. Like I believe in karma. There's
Hmm.
definitely a goes around, comes around energy,
Yeah.
and what you put out comes back.
Oh yeah. It
So
does.
like one of the reasons like dealing with the older generations, like once my grandparents passed, like and I was into DJing, like I recognized what was going on because I've been watching my their brothers and sisters pass.
Hmm.
And it's like oh my god, they're so alone. Like I'd go over and hang out with them, but once I started DJing, like I'd feel a big bit of guilt because I wasn't always the cheapest guy. So like I would donate, like I would take time, or like I'd show up on like a Monday afternoon at a retirement center or a nursing home.
Mhm.
And, the music would be turned way down, and I'd have everything pre-approved. But it was the to me it was paying it back, like what my grandparents had taught me.
Yeah. And that it's a when my being around my grandparents and being around the facilities because grandfather, I had to kind of stop seeing him at a certain point because it wasn't doing him any good because of the stress it put him under for a little while.
Okay.
Not wanting, he didn't know who we were,
Yeah.
and I was the last of the kids that he remembered. And as far as like his own daughters and things like that, I was the grandkid, and he just, for whatever reason, he would go to me. And I had to stop going because it was so painful leaving him there. Um, we had him in the
Hmm.
facility because he was getting violent because of medications they had put him on, and it was a long story. But in the end, it was for his own safety, and it was heartbreaking because I didn't want to leave him there in these facilities, and also I had a little boy, so I couldn't
Yeah.
go with my son without worrying about his safety. Even though my son at the time was a great way of deterring it, but the problem is with Alzheimer's patients is that they put them in
They don't.
facilities with fucking schizophrenics,
Yeah.
and
The
oh my god.
what a lot of people don't realize is once people start to have diminished mental capacity,
Mhm.
and then you add a dash of crazy, even a dash,
Mhm.
that it's like dealing with handicapped people. Like
Mhm.
if they attack you, they ain't stopping.
No.
Like most people don't know, with like people with mental disabilities, it's if they bite you and they're a certain way, they're not gonna bite till there's a chunk missing. Like 9 times out of 10, a human bites another human, they stop
Right.
at a certain point, and you have to be aware of, okay, I have to think about my child,
Mhm. Right.
and it's such a dual edged
It is because for
thing.
a little while I'd take him with me and everything would be fine, but then he started to get more aggressive with staff, and then I noticed
Hmm.
that it would agitate other patients,
It
and
also like
ooh,
it seems like change would set him off too.
yes,
You know,
yes,
just with my experiences, I got lucky. My grandparents either passed in hospital, but we all helped them keep their home,
yeah,
so that they could pass at home. We got lucky in that part. They
yeah,
didn't need medical help. Grandpa did do hospice here at home, but we were all here.
yeah,
But it's so very hard to watch.
oh yeah, because you see someone that was once like at 120%, like they seemed almost subhuman.
Oh yeah,
um,
you're your own personal superhero.
Exactly. And they're building houses and they're a part of the fire department. So my
Hmm.
grandfather was a volunteer firefighter for a long time. And, it's just being very active, very blue collar, very independent, self sufficient, going from that to an extreme version of himself. And uh, the deterioration of everything.
Yeah,
And
that's why you have to be
wow.
careful what energy you're putting out there,
Hmm.
because if you're just this magnanimous asshole, sorry,
No, it's true.
and you treat everybody bad, they're not going to want anything to do with you. And
Absolutely.
you're going to be stuck in, I don't want to call it prison, but
But
it is a prison, kind of.
it's a purgatory.
Yeah, purgatory. I like that better. But especially if it's a medical issue, and like it's
Hmm.
just stuff that you, as an adult at that point in life, like you can't do it. I can't run a catheter. Like I've
Right.
never had any kind of medical training in my life. Like I'll change a diaper. Like I got no problem with doing that.
Right.
But it's when it gets to the point where it's out of your hands and you have to figure out what's best for them.
Ooh,
If
that's
you
rough.
treated people like if you were very stingy, person, and like not like where it's frugal, but like stingy, where it's like you had it but just didn't want to, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna see them thinking, you're gonna see them counting your pennies,
Mhm.
and like, okay, he's not gonna need that money, so let's go with the cheap option, and
Oh man. Yeah.
that's part of what you put out comes back.
And it's there's when it comes to like when you talk because you and I you had said earlier that because of the work that you've done when you were working at one point at a cemetery and you were
Yeah,
digging graves
the
and
cemeteries.
being around that environment you stop fearing death as much.
Yeah, I have zero fear of death, and it's like a lot of that freaks a lot of people out because I'm so young. It's like I don't want to die. Don't
Right.
get me wrong,
Right. You're like I'm not going down
but
that path, but.
everything owes a death,
Mhm.
and it's knowing that like I've had to be there when they had to euthanize horses, or I was the guy in the unmarked white van that looked like a Chomo van that's
Yeah.
out in front or behind the vet clinic while you're in there grieving, and it's you learn a lot, like just watching things, and that's why kind of my crazy mentality that a lot of people made fun of me about when I first started YouTubing was like I treat everything as equals. Humans, plants, animals, we're all alive,
Mhm.
and I try and treat everything with respect. And you see working at the cemetery, you see the amount of love that people have for things, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
I can't lie. I have 6 burial plots and two gigantic markers that I worked for the guy making markers for a while because I
Mhm.
always try and keep 2 jobs and live off the lesser income whenever I can.
Right.
And like I was able to do all the sandblasting myself, or media blasting is what I should say. And it's it's very heartwarming, to see when people are actually engaged and they care. But you can also tell when people just don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Throw it in there. How much is that going to cost? About $179.
Right.
Really? Oh, that's insane. Well, we have another option, but you wouldn't get the remains back. Well, let's do that. Whoa, I thought you
Yeah.
said muffin was you know, and like it would surprise me how often that would pop up because we did what's called communal cremations,
Mhm. Right.
and it's just where everything's put in a big giant cremator.
Right.
And I don't want to get too far into it, but there's a pit,
Yeah.
and it's just bones. Like, but a lot of people freak out, and they're like, "What was there is gone." If
Correct.
that makes any sense. Like, but I also subscribe to energy can't be created or destroyed, only transferred.
Correct.
So it's going somewhere. That's why I also like I leave people to like I don't care what religion you are, even if you don't even believe in it.
Right.
But I've had to conduct like because part of what I did, like the owner, she was getting older, and I have a great voice when I choose to use it.
Mhm.
Uh, but I'm good with being able to read copy and have good timing, or if I hear something more than 5 times, I can almost repeat it the exact same way. So I had to carry out Jewish burials,
Mm.
uh, Buddhist burials. And a lot of people they're not aware of all that. But yeah, it was caskets and everything, and it's honestly one of my favorite jobs I ever had. As
You know,
morbid as that sounds, but
there's
I was able
something.
to repay.
Correct. There is something to that end of life that because when I did hospice, I didn't know how I was going to do because at this point, I had sat with three different family members and kind of let them. I was there when they left, and
Yeah,
in the beginning, you know, I'm spiritually inclined. I believe in God very strongly, and seen a lot of stuff. Can't explain stuff. It is what it is,
yeah,
and
lots of the unexplained.
yeah, And I will say this: it's a gift to be there with someone, as hard as it is, and as
Yeah.
absolutely tragic as it is in some cases, depending on just obvious reasons of circumstance. But it's a gift to be with someone at the end of life and to share that, because it is the most significant events in someone's life are going to be their birth and their death.
Hmm. Yeah.
And obviously, we're not going to be there for our grandparents, when they were born, obviously, but to be there for the ending of their life is a gift.
Oh yeah. To be able to help them.
Absolutely.
Uh, I was there for my grandpa's. Well, grandpa and Paps.
Mhm.
Paps, I'm still not happy about because like I could hear my nephew or my brothers and sisters and their mothers in the back of their mind, and my aunt just
Mhm.
like counting because we all knew. We all knew what our inheritance was a long time ago. Uh, One of the rules with my dad is if we argue about any of it, all of it gets liquidated.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and like I 100% encourage him. I'm like, there's vehicles you own, Dad, that just have to be sold, plain and simple.
Right.
None of us need a Lincoln Mark IV, fancy dancy pickup truck.
Right.
Liquidate it. Just liquidate it, get it out of the way. If somebody needs one of the houses, as a family, we'll take care of it.
Right.
But if they're not chipping in, they're out. Like we figure up the state taxes, everybody throws in their part.
Right.
And, there's about three houses that are like that. My When my aunt on my father's side passes, my cousin's going to be in for a rude awakening.
Mm.
That was my they live in my pap's house,
Right.
and they're hoarders, but it's
Oh.
also they're around the 400
Okay.
mark,
Okay.
and I'm a big guy. Like I've gotten up to 300 pounds,
Mhm.
and I do my best to keep myself low in weight because like heart issues and stuff like I was talking about.
Right.
But I refuse to be part of. I refuse to enable their obesity.
Right.
Like I've had times during the holidays where I've had to like I couldn't eat
Right.
just because well, I've taken my last name off of here, but no one, I don't think I've said her name, but my aunt, she ate so much that she messed herself,
See, yeah. Yeah,
and it was like, oh my god.
and the thing is that I had extended family. There was a couple individuals like that, and it was just beyond me. I was like, listen, this gluttony is not good for you.
Yeah,
I know food can become a vice.
yeah,
Um,
it's a substance to abuse like any other.
yes, I mean I know it absolutely. Food can be a huge vice, and when it's taken away from you, it causes a panic or an anxiety. And
Yeah.
food is an easy go-to. It really is. It's everywhere. It's legal.
Yeah,
um,
right.
it's accessible. Um, but there definitely has to be a limit to what you intake. And then if you're still like, I have habits of how I eat. I'm very much a creature of routine. So
Yeah,
I will go weeks and I will eat the same thing all the time because I just don't like to think that much about it.
yeah.
And
I'm big on Mexican food just because I can do it off quick, fast, and in a hurry. Tacos, burritos,
exactly,
fajitas,
like fast and
and
easy.
it's relatively healthy.
Right. And in the end, it's about, moderation, number
Yeah,
one,
balance.
balancing it. And I don't like thinking a whole lot about food. Like, I'm not a very obsessed with food. That's not my thing. Like, I'm not. I know some people, like,
No,
there's some people that are so fucking obsessed with food. It's like they have the Food Network on in their house 24/7, you
yeah,
know?
that's one of the ways I was able to lose weight. Part of it's intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
which is something I tried out this year for the most part. I didn't realize I was doing it in the past, but I had a Muslim friend at work, and his name was Mahmoud, or yeah, Mahmoud,
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Muhammad, but everyone just called him Muhammad. And I actually took the time to learn his language and how to say his name properly, just because I felt it was messed up. No one else wanted to. But Ramadan happened,
Oh.
and
Mhm.
I'm watching him, and I'm like, "Dear Lord, man, you look absolutely skeletal. Are you okay?" And like I'd be the first one. Like if he was at an event and it was sundown, and I'm making him a plate. The Southern hospitality kicking in.
Yeah.
I'm like, here's your water. Drink that bottle of water, and then eat that. I don't want to hear any arguments. If you need something for the wife and kids, cool. Just let me
Right.
know. But it seems so hard. Like I got really big into food, and that's one of the reasons I did the whole chef thing for a while.
Mhm.
Is just because I found that if it's for me, it was quality versus quantity.
Right.
Because part of the intermittent fasting, it kind of follows Ramadan a little bit. Like you only eat between sunlight hours. You kind of
Right.
pick your times. Like I'd use the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. schedule when I was more of a day person. But it also teaches you to value what you're eating more too.
Correct.
And when you do that, you get in the habit of like I'll find foods that I love and I enjoy and that are also really quick and easy to do.
Mhm.
But I'm also aware of like, okay, that has a lot of dairy in it, so I need to make sure I take that out for a couple times this week or a
Right.
couple times this month. And it's like you said, like I'll get in the habit. Like you have the people that are spaghetti, meatloaf,
Oh. Yep.
those kinds of people. My dad has a weird habit. He does sausage and potatoes, or
Yep.
I don't know how much time you spend up north, but have you heard of? It's essentially they take a pig's skull
Oh God.
and boil it, and then add it to grits. It's called
Oh.
Scrabble.
I
Scrabble.
have heard of Scrabble, and I don't.
It's
Nope.
horrible. I
Yeah.
was
It
like, Dad,
sounds.
never again.
That sounds
No,
like some
I just
cannibalistic ritual sacrifice of some type. I
I
I don't know.
I was like, you just made me waste a meal.
You know,
Because no.
to take a step back to the fasting thing.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, I was thinking about it as I think I've done fasting before for spiritual reasons. I did it,
Yeah.
primarily just to kind of do a reset. And
Yeah.
when you remove the food, it's hard. Don't get me wrong, because I am a
Yeah.
snacker like a
Yeah. Most
motherfucker.
people don't know what true hunger actually is.
Whew. And giving up the food. For I did it. How long did I do it? I'm trying to remember. I did it for 3 days.
Okay.
And the longest I ever went was a week, and it actually wasn't as bad the second time around. The first
It's
time,
not as hard as you
it
think.
isn't that hard. I mean, I supplemented with water,
Yeah.
just because you need it, but it was when I got to the second day, things became less cluttered.
Mm-hmm.
My brain was a lot more clear. I felt a lot more grounded. I got over the hangry because I was hangry.
Yeah.
I was a bitch that first day.
That's just the sugar
Oh
talking.
yeah, you get rid of all, and
The sugar addiction.
yes, and like so like when I did fasting, it made such a tremendous difference in quality of life. And so after I had my daughter, I was like, okay, no more babies. We are clear for landing. I can start getting rid of this weight because I
Yeah.
gained, you gain weight with babies. Who the hell knew? Um,
Yeah.
so
Honestly, I think it's
uh,
sorry. I think it's weird not to.
yeah, and it's
Like
not.
I fully encourage people. I'm like, you know what? Eat what you need to.
Yeah,
Be happy,
correct.
because a lot of that's going into the child you're forming.
Right.
Your energies and your hormones are bouncing back and forth.
Mhm. And if you have complications or something, you just, make sure you get your intake in, get your vitamin intake in, you're gold, you know.
Yeah.
And you're going to gain the weight, you're going to lose the weight, you're going to gain it back because that's life. But I after I had my daughter, I was like, okay, I got to get rid of this weight. So I did the fasting intermittently. And it's retraining your stomach too
Yeah.
to not it shrinks it a little. It's a lack of better words. It's reducing your diet so that way you're not eating like let's say 6 times a day.
Yeah. It
You
also
know.
like it teaches you to recognize the difference between thirst and hunger. Because
Mhm.
most people don't realize 9 times out of 10, if you think you're hungry, you're thirsty.
Mhm.
because it's the same nerve, if I'm right. Sorry, I'm not medical. I just
I think you're right.
personal experience, but it's the same kind of nerves, or it's the same nerve that's sending the signal.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's the same station.
your brain's just like, oh, we got that signal. It's like a check engine light. It doesn't really say exactly what it is. You have to learn it.
Right. And the truth is too, it's like I gave up soda. I haven't had soda in like years. Like it's been
Yeah, the
a long
CO2
time.
bloats you bad,
Oh God,
and I
the
can't lie.
sugar.
I'm I've been kind of on a tear with the Mountain Dew lately, but
Yeah, my eldest, that's his Achilles heel is the Mountain Dew, and
yeah.
and everyone has that. Like I went through that for a long time. The moment I gave up all soda, like I gave up
Hmm.
soda completely. I'm on water and tea. Tea is my go-to, but it's unsweetened
Hot or
tea,
cold?
cold.
Okay.
Um, so I drink plain tea with no sugar. I can't. Sugar is like there is a difference. I would prefer natural sugar over the shit, like equal or
Yeah, I
whatever
do the
sweetener.
unbleached even. I go that far.
Yeah, like the more natural the sugar, the better it is anyway in flavor. But I stay away from soda. And the rare occasion where I have a sip of something, because everyone's like, you know how people are. They're like,
It
taste
tastes
this. It
horrible
tastes like shit. It tastes like
because it's like
syrup.
it's so overly sweet. I past couple weeks, like I had a couple of lymph nodes on my left side of my body swell up big,
Mm.
and like don't ever WebMD yourself. Like get an idea, but don't diagnose
Yeah,
yourself.
you're gonna end up with cancer. You're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
end up.
you'll cause it something. You'll cause it to be something far worse than it is just by stressing out over it.
Right.
But I was like, okay, like I put the sodas down, handed the rest of them out to my other like Mountain Dew's been doing a lot of special flavors this year,
Mhm.
but like I started killing the large Simply Orange orange juice container that
Yes.
looks like a carafe. I
Yes.
was killing one of those a day at that point, and like here lately I've been drinking a lot of great value juices, like like white grape peach, lots of cranberry,
Mm.
which I can thank my grandmother for that, for the love of cranberries, and
Right.
the raisin nut breads.
Oh
It doesn't
yeah.
matter if it's a bread or a bagel. I'm gonna fuck that up entirely. That's mine. But yeah, I've been switching out to a lot of juices, and I'll kind of empty one bottle into one of my mason jars, and I'll cut it with water,
Right.
and then I'll take that bottle and I'll like the bottle that still has undiluted, and I'll cut that. And once you do that, if you crack another bottle of juice open and you kind of have a dummy and you just put it up and take a sip, you're like, whoa!
Yeah, it's very
Like your
strong.
your brain your brain will play so many tricks with you that if you just take a little bit of time, you'd be surprised what you can push yourself to do. Which is another reason why I do the little YouTube projects I do, is just
Right.
push my limits. And like a lot of people are just they get into this, oh no, this is what my body does. And it's like, yeah, but
Uh,
what if I told you you can do more?
right. There's certain things that you can. Your brain is nothing more than a computer that can be reprogrammed and reset at any time.
Hmm.
And deficiencies in vitamins and deficiencies in nutrition is the biggest problem that I believe that most people do have, and that's why they supplement. Example, like they get addicted to things a little more quickly. Let's say prescription drugs.
Oh yeah.
Instead of doctors checking your vitamin intake, they're very quick, unless you specifically ask, mind you. There's some good doctors out there. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
shitting on all of them, but a
It's
good
it's it's
portion,
easier to take that bonus they get from writing you that
yes,
script for the pain med than it is to run the test for your vitamins.
absolutely. So they're not going to check your vitamin intake. So, I know this sounds like old person fucking wisdom or some bullshit, but have
Ah,
your vitamins checked.
yeah.
And it can give you, lack of, I have a vitamin D deficiency I struggle with off and on. And I've always have had this ever since my first son was born. Um, but vitamin D deficiency. So if I don't take care of it, I don't take any supplement whatsoever. I'm going to have like a palpitation. I might get a panic attack or something. And
I get the palpitations too.
yes, so I mean all those things are related. And so have your vitamins checked. Have your
Hmm.
hormones checked if you're a female or male. It doesn't matter. these are things that can be corrected with natural means without having to go and be dependent on some other thing, or I would say prescription drugs being the biggest
Yeah.
one. But what
Well,
will go ahead.
I had a well, one of my exes was she was hooked on heroin,
Mm,
but that started with opiates, just because
yep,
something hurt,
right.
and it's like what your brain once you teach your brain that it's not supposed to hurt, I guess, for lack of a better word,
Right.
like once you get it used to just cruising on autopilot, it's gonna think everything hurts. That's one of the things of dealing with people detoxing
Yeah.
is like you barely touch them, they're like, oh my god, you broke my arm. It's like, I grazed you.
Right.
I understand you're having a rough time.
Your
Let me know if there's
sensory,
anything I can actually do to help.
your whole body is
Screaming
yes, and
like it's on fire is the
it's
way
like
I've
hot
heard him
wiring.
talk about it. Yeah.
It's and that's the hard part is like you have to go through a reset, and no matter how difficult and dark that can get, because it can,
Oh yeah.
it's pushing it, and it's trying to get a reset button put into place so that way your body can remember, oh wait, this is how I normally function.
Well, one of the things that kind of gets to me is like watching people when they don't have their coffee.
Oh God,
And
yeah.
like I've been in situations where I misbehaved, and I've had to see people go through caffeine detox.
Oof.
And like I've seen people go through opiate detox better. And like, but they want to sit there and they want to be judgmental about it. It's like overweight people judging people for they want to drive fast or
Mhm.
they want to have a good time. It's all about balance, Like I'm
Right.
not saying go out and do fucking heroin. If you're
No.
80, knock your socks off,
Mhm.
You got things in line, go ahead, give her a shot. It's not going to be one shot though.
You're right.
But like you were saying, the resets, taking the time to make sure you're in control of your brain,
Right.
because it's like, to me, like when I think about it, there's me, there's my brain, and then there's my body.
Right.
I can tell my brain to push my body to do insanely crazy things. Like I've been able to lift up 200-pound items by myself. Like, oh, I shouldn't have been able to do that because
Right.
I got a chipped vertebrae from an accident as a child. But like I wish more people would, like, instead of laughing me off when I tell them about that, just like I know I'm really nobody to you for the most part, but I'm taking the time to let you know a really cool trick, and just try it. What's it gonna hurt you,
Right.
And like people run in fear. He's not one of us.
Well, it's like I, like their dietary like um I had, I realized how much crap I used to eat, right?
Yeah.
And I gained weight after the kids, and I wasn't like in the obese category necessarily, but I was heavily overweight, and I was like well aware I had, hereditary, knee issues, okay?
Yeah.
And that's regardless of weight, but it's way worse if you don't get it
Oh
soon,
yeah.
you
For
know what I
me
mean?
being a big guy, yeah. My
So,
my knees are
yeah.
one of the main issues. I don't want to live in cold climates anymore.
Right. It's like, oh shit.
I've messed them up so bad when like once I get over 250 pounds, I know I
Yes.
don't even have to weigh myself.
Like yeah,
And
exactly.
you're
Exactly.
because of your height difference, like
Mhm.
I'm not even going to spit numbers out there because that'd be rude. But you know
uh
you know when you've reached that point is what
yes.
I'm trying to say.
You can feel it in your body that, oh shit, I am carrying way too much for
Yeah.
my mass. Like this is like, I feel like I'm a weeble wobble, but I am gonna fall
Mm-hmm.
down. You know what I'm saying?
Like I done messed up.
Oh yeah. And so I was like, I have to reevaluate my diet. And so I realized there were certain foods I was getting sick from a lot. For like,
Oh, I loved how you said that.
what?
Most people have that. They have that mental block. I'm going on a diet. You're not going on a diet. You're adjusting your diet.
Yeah, you're fixing it.
Your diet is your intake, and
Right.
most people never get that. And
And
they're all like, I hate diets.
right. And
Ugh.
of course, everyone fucking hates a diet, but in my mind,
Yeah,
I was like, no, I just need to, I need to adjust. I need to fix what I'm eating because I
yeah.
realized I was getting sick a lot from red meat, and I was getting sick specifically from pork. Like that's what was making me this. Like honestly, it didn't matter how it was how it was prepared or anything. I always pay. I always, even Canadian wild boar, some of the best, I'm not even
Yeah.
shitting you. Some of the best pork I've had, I get
Yeah.
sick from. And it's something about the meat that my body does not like. And I was like, I don't want to be a vegetarian. I love chicken. Like that's how I was.
Yeah. I have a weird thing about eggs personally.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll make me nauseous, and like I'll get over it. Like
yeah,
I will if somebody wants eggs, I will fire off some eggs.
right.
It
But
doesn't mean I'm going to join you.
correct.
I,
Yeah,
like
no.
I like I'll boil an egg off for myself, but
I,
that's something I learned from my mother. She didn't like mashed potatoes because of my biological father,
right.
so she'd always do a baked potato for herself. So
It's finding adjustments and ways
yeah,
to. So I stopped eating. I'll eat red meat once in a while, but it's very rare, and I don't have pork at all. And I cut those out, and then I got rid of soda because I was like, I got to get rid of some of these toxins. I felt like these things were very
it
much.
sounds like
Uh,
it's a corn issue.
yeah, there's something that involved in all of that did not agree with my body, and so when I got rid of it, it made oh my god, it was like night and day. It took a good year because I got off
Hmm.
caffeine. That was the other fucking thing. Now tea has caffeine, but it's not like soda. It's not to the
Yeah,
maximum.
it's different.
Oh, it's a natural caffeine, so it's like not a big deal. But I got rid of the caffeine. That was a bitch.
Yeah.
I think I want to say a good 2 years. I was just not happy about giving up caffeine, but
Hmm.
it went away, and eventually I stopped craving it, and now I don't care about it at all. But it's adjusting the diet, trying to find things that work, and some people it's hard. It is the hardest thing in the world to give up certain things, and I know that. Fuck yeah, I am a snacker, and
Yeah.
I love fucking snacks. I love chocolate. I just love like snacks. I can't help
Yeah.
it, man.
Do you still splurge?
Yeah.
Like every once in a while,
Oh,
like just a little bit,
dude,
like
if I were to tell you my eating habits, which I am not going to tell you on the computer right now,
hey, hey,
but
hey.
I
A man is not going to ask a lady her private affairs.
I will tell you this: I would piss off a lot of fucking people if they knew my eating habits. It's like I still eat a lot. The difference is that I found ways that I found the I guess for lack of better words, I found the hot spots of how I was gaining weight before.
Yeah. That's the way a lot of people don't think about it. Like,
You know,
they, y- I hate to say it, but it's laziness.
yeah,
They don't want to put in the effort to figure out what's breaking them.
right.
And that's exactly what you are breaking yourself.
Right, because you don't realize. Because let's be honest, when we all acquired bad habits of eating.
Oh yeah.
We all do. It's like
To err is human.
exactly. So we're gonna drink soda is the Achilles heel for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And I've talked to people and they asked me how I lost my weight and I said, dude, I got rid of the fucking soda. That alone, that alone with the sodium and the sugar and the corn syrup, all those things, if you take that out, you would be surprised how much weight you'll lose just from just getting rid of soda.
Oh yeah. Oh, to kind of add a redneck spin on it, when you're getting animals ready for market,
Mhm.
you feed them corn. It fattens them up.
Oh God, it makes me.
And
Now
then
that
a
you
lot
mention
of
the
people
corn,
don't
that's
think about
interesting.
that. High fructose corn syrup is still frickin' corn.
Yes,
It's
it
just
is.
sweet corn. And our bodies aren't meant for corn.
That's an
It's
interesting thing.
fun, but like, why do you think your body doesn't process it? I'm sure we've all eaten an ear of corn, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
I don't even want to go there, but
Yeah. Nothing. Let's just say nothing gets. You want to know what
it
recycling
doesn't
looks
break
like?
down. Yeah, it does not break down.
It does, and there's no real nutritional value
Yeah,
to it at all.
it's filler.
Yes.
But once you crush the kernel, it
Mhm.
it morphs the way it works.
Mhm.
And I think one of the reasons we kind of moved towards pushing ethanol into our vehicles is because people were moving away from corn because they started to figure it out. But now we're back in kind of a less intellectual scrutinizing kind of
Yeah.
society again
Yeah.
because we've kind of gotten lazy again.
Well, that's
And I'm not
because.
blaming that on anything.
Oh no,
It's
it's just a natural
shit happens.
progression. It's a natural
Everything is
progression.
cyclical.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, corn is horrible.
Yep.
I love my fish tacos with corn tortillas.
Oh, I do. I love fucking corn tortillas.
And like, I'm not saying flour is much better either, but my mom developed a gluten issue,
Mm.
and
Okay.
like we had to figure it out. But like, I do my best to. Another one of the reasons I cook the way I do is because my grandma taught me a lot, and my pap taught me a lot of weird, fun little things. But my dad, like, we do all the cooking for the holidays. But it's another way for me to show love and
Right.
to pay back. I hate to call it a debt, but a debt that my parents, gave me. Like I owe them so freaking much.
Mhm.
So like I will find ways to cook foods that we can both enjoy. Like if it's hamburgers, all right, I'm gonna get a nice healthy head of lettuce. That way I can get enough leaves to make your lettuce wrap for your burger.
Right.
Or I'll fire off some tomorrow night for my mom. We're doing sausage, sauerkraut, and potatoes.
Oh, okay. It's a nice
It's
round
very,
meal. That's a
yeah,
good
very,
round
very
meal.
Midwest German kind of a food. I know,
Oh yeah. But no.
but it's something I grew up on.
Yeah.
So to me, to do that, it's just repaying her. It's like thanks. You taught me how to do this.
Right.
Shit.
And honestly, it's like with food. Like when I was a kid, there were certain foods like there's go-to foods, like you were saying. Like
Oh yes.
they, I they had like I was not a fan of pigs in a blanket with the boiled cabbage and ugh,
See, neither did I, but I'm a huge kolache guy.
man, whew. It's the boiled cabbage, man. It's that smell. If I smell it,
Ah,
I'm
yeah.
done. I'm like I'm out. Like because they would make pigs in a blanket and like my grandfather.
Okay. I'm not aware of that version.
Yeah, it was. She would wrap. She'd take cabbage. She'd wrap the sausage, or she'd take.
Oh, I think in my little corner of the world, that's we call it a cabbage roll.
Yeah, they
Okay.
called it pigs in a blanket because she had her own method. She made up her own
Yeah.
recipe for him, because he loved it that way. So he just rolled
Yeah.
the cabbage over like it could be ground sausage or actual links in some cases. Most of the time it was
Hmm.
ground, and then she would boil it, and it would just go on for hours. And I was like, this is hell, and the whole house smelled
Yeah.
terrible. But she had a homemade chicken and noodle soup thing with egg noodles.
Oh,
Oh shit.
do you chicken and dumplings? Do you remember that
Oh
one?
yeah.
With like the big thick noodles.
Yeah, those are. Oh my
Oh,
god! And
I
that
like. I'm
homemade
gonna start
noodles, man.
guilting my mom into writing a cookbook at this point. Like,
If she
Mom, I
does, I'll
love
get a
you.
copy, man.
Right? Could you write some of that stuff down for me? Because my mom, she has memory issues. She was run over by a semi.
Oh,
Being the good mom that she was, she took a job on a road crew,
oh
and
no.
she was the danger job, and I've done the danger job too, which is the guy holding that freaking sign.
Oh no.
But she didn't get run over exactly. The semi was close enough; it knocked her flat on her ass,
Oh
and
Jesus.
she sometimes my sisters take advantage of it, but sometimes her short term doesn't convert to long term.
Oh yeah.
So the nice part about it is we can watch movies over and over again, and she enjoys the shit out of it. It's almost like 51st dates. Like I can I can help her. Like she
Oh,
can enjoy things so much more than anybody else. So I don't see it as
it's not
as
so
as a
bad
as
in
a
a
bad thing,
sense. Yeah.
But
It's
I
sad, but
definitely
it's
like I will step on my sister's toes anytime they try to
yeah.
take advantage of it as kids. I'm like,
Yeah, you should
I'm
definitely
bad about that.
you should definitely get her to write some of the recipes down. I mean, I have
Yeah, there's.
my great grandma's books and stuff from her recipes and things. People have like churches. They'll send like my
Hmm.
friends from their churches will send me their books because these are like generational recipes.
Yeah, you like the old Duncan Hines and Betty Crocker.
Yeah, some of those, the ones
Like
that
we
come
have a
from the
hardback
oh my
kind
god,
too.
I highly suggest though looking for those church like old school church recipe
Yes.
books, man. They are gold mines for like every type of ethnicity. Like you'll find like I have a lot of Polish and
Hmm.
German and some obviously Irish because of the areas in Indiana and Illinois, and I have a couple friends from North Carolina and Pennsylvania send me some goodies too. But The recipe books are the shit because you never know what you're gonna find in there, and the desserts
Yeah.
are like the stews. Oh my god! So yeah, it's
My
really hard to write stuff down.
I do I do beer rocks. I don't know if you're aware of
Oh,
those.
I
The
don't.
it's essentially it's like a 60-40 ground beef sausage with lots of pepper, but
Mm.
it also has cabbage. And I know you said you're not a fan of cabbage.
Oh.
It gets boiled off, but you take that,
Mhm.
and once you get it all mingled, for lack of a better word, I hate to use buzzwords, but you take that and then you put it in a yeast roll
Oh,
and throw that in the oven.
that's
It's almost like a
interesting.
little German hamburger, but
That's what it sounds
it
like.
started off as bar food because you go to the beer halls
That's simple enough.
and yeah, it's simple food. You can do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. And once you have it prepped, it's 5 minutes in an oven to get it back up to temp.
It's kind of like
Stick it on out.
shepherd's pie or something.
Yeah, but just no veggies.
Oh,
Well, I guess cabbage
cabbage
is a
counts.
veg, but I mean it's not like no peas, no carrots.
Right.
Like most of the flavor notes you're gonna catch is meat, pepper, and
Interesting.
yeast. And I try and avoid too yeasty of
Mm.
breads.
Yeah.
Like I'll do a lot of rye, pumpernickel, like like I said, old ways,
Mhm.
and like I'll do stuff like that. I love a Cuban sandwich too.
Oh, Cuban food.
Like
Oh yeah.
I will knock out one of those Cuban sandwiches. But
Cuban bread is made of God's tears.
yes, yes,
Jesus. Cuban
we
crackers. I grew up on Cuban food, so like yeah, I'm very biased. I'm like, yes, bring it forth. I will eat all of it.
like I'm big on rice and beans. Like just all the
Yeah.
different regional ways you can prep it. I'm big on red beans and rice. I got some.
Yes.
I need to run over to Kitty Cat down yonder because she's a fan, and I'm like, I'm not. It's set in my fridge for 2 days. Take it because she has lots of. She was born in Nolens,
Okay.
or New Orleans, for those that want me to enunciate properly. And so, like, yeah, I'll make food because it's a great way to connect,
Yeah.
and it helps kind of go back to our earlier conversation how the internet has disconnected us so much.
Mhm.
It's a great way to show love to people without like saying it exactly.
Right.
And it's like
It's
to me, it's the connections in life that matter most.
and food does have that, you know, like significant I don't know how to put this properly, but a big pivotal role in different people's lives, like certain types of food. Like for
Oh
instance,
yeah,
egg noodles. That's childhood to me. Like I loved fucking egg noodles,
yeah,
and I love homemade like pastas. I love that shit. But like
like actual
homemade,
like
yep,
like the flour and the
yes,
egg.
mhm,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
yes.
I liked, I one of my first
So it's
jobs.
like you're a foodie without being pretentious about it.
Exactly. Like I like
Okay.
simple shit. I'm like
Yeah.
I worked in a pizzeria with like a real Italian pizzeria. Like these were
Yes.
Chicago Italians, and I wasn't supposed to be making pizzas because I wasn't
So
good at,
you know
because I
about real Chicago pizza then, huh?
yes, and so I was learning how to do like their different. They had different ones they were doing, like trying different, the no edges, that kind of shit.
Uh huh.
And I loved it. I was like, I learned how to make pizza. I learned how to do calzones, and um, it was like, oh, this is badass. And and for some people who don't know what I mean about I was a female in the kitchen is in Italian culture, the women were not in the pizzerias making the pizzas.
Yeah, it was
Um,
very male.
Absolutely. It's a very male thing. And I didn't know that. So when I got hired, I was the first female that they'd ever hired. Part of this, it was the second chain. The first one was in Chicago. This was in Arizona. And the owner came
Okay.
in, little Italian man, very sweet, but definitely old school, no bullshit. And he goes, "You make a good pie for a woman." I'm like, "I'll take it." And
Yeah.
and he was always nice to me. I always paid attention. I listened to him about like how to do things properly the way he wanted because he had his own recipe for things. He had his own method, and I wasn't going to be a dick about this because this guy knows what the hell he's doing. But there's a love for, I think, an Italian culture, especially for food and preparation. It's the same thing you were speaking about. It's a piece of
Yeah.
love, and
I
dry too. You know,
sorry, I don't. Before I go off on my tangent, what was the sauce? Was it spicy?
a little, but not.
So it had the crushed red pepper in it.
Yes, but not a
Oh
lot.
yes.
He
No,
had
no, that's
he had a little like way about the way that he wanted to make the sauce. Like he was very
hmm
particular about the spices, but it wasn't super spicy, but it had a little bit of a kick to it. Just enough to be like
well,
that's tasty, you know?
so many so many people get stuck on Chicago deep dish. That's not Chicago
Mm-mm.
pizza.
No, it's not.
Chicago pizza is generally it's not a thin crust exactly,
Yeah,
but it's not a pan. Like
correct.
it's somewhere in between where you're not just filling up on dough,
It's a flat
but you're
pizza.
also not using a fork, you know?
Correct. Like
But
it.
it's a spicy sauce, and it's my time I spent up there. It wasn't cut in triangles.
No,
It was
squares.
it was cut in squares or slices.
Yes.
Like you cut the pie in half, and then 2 or 3 inch strips
Yes.
all the way. So like I try and explain that to people, and they're like, "What? No, Chicago's deep dish." And I'm
No,
like,
Chicago
"Actually,
deep dish is
no.
some Pizza Hut bullshit. That's what that is,
Yeah,
man.
it's a tourist trap thing they did,
Yeah, because
but
traditional pizza, like it's not. You can make it thin, of course. Like
mhm.
I love thin pizza, but the regular plain old like Chicago pizza is like a medium dough.
Yeah,
It's like moderate, I guess.
it's not it doesn't rise too much, if
Correct.
that makes sense. It
Right.
doesn't have lots of air pockets.
Correct. And if it does, you just go and pop them. You're good to go, and it keeps it
Yeah.
on track. Makes the pie look really great, and it doesn't retain as a lot of grease as you would imagine.
hmm
It's like the perfect pizza to me. Like I'm very biased about Chicago
Yeah.
pizza. And deep
I
dish is crap to me. I don't like it. It's very greasy. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's horrible. If you've been drinking, yeah.
It's true.
Like we used to have a chain here called Old Chicago,
Mhm.
and like I loved going there because I'm kind of a beer snob. I'm picky, but I like to try new things.
Right.
And like I think I did the beer tour. Uh, I was one away from getting my own tankard,
Oh
which is
shit.
like something like 115 beers 10 times.
Oh shit.
God, don't ask about how much I spent. I'm not too proud. But me and my girlfriend at the time, we like my day was we'd go up there on Sundays for my football
Right.
because I'm a Steelers fan, Pennsylvania, and for her we'd go up during Thunder games, and
Right.
it was a fun thing, and we were able to get together about it.
Right.
But yeah, deep dish, awesome if you need to soak up some alcohol.
Yeah.
But other than that, why the hell are you using a fork to eat hand food?
Right. I just don't. I don't like that. Like
I don't get it.
I don't like I don't like that super thick crust with the bread.
Yeah,
I like it
and
like I said, I like the moderate to the thin. I'm okay with that. Like I like that kind of stuff. Like I am a fan of that. Um, but yeah, deep
yeah,
love for Italian food on that. I'm like it doesn't always agree with my ass, but I'm still gonna eat it and then cry
yeah.
about it later. That's my life. But it's just if I find like authentic Italian food, I'm like sign me up. I'm on board. We'll see what's up with that. See how if it's family
Yeah,
owned, all the better.
you actually know what you're talking about though.
Right. Like I
I make my own lasagna from
oh
scratch.
beautiful.
But I'll do traditional, but I'll also do the redneck.
Oh
If you know what I'm talking about with the cottage cheese.
yes. God, I
I
remember
God
this.
love my mother, but she ruined me because that was my first experience, and to
Lasagna.
me, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Oh
Yeah,
God. Yeah, I love
but I
cottage cheese,
will.
but I have had it with the lasagna. It's not terrible. It's tasty. I'll eat it,
Yeah,
but it's not the same, you know.
it's a little more sloppy.
Mhm.
Is the only way I can put it. It's less dry, but I will straight up. I will take my ricotta. I will chop up my parsley, and I will blend my ricotta myself. I'll make my own ragu.
Mhm.
I'll make my own noodles when I have the freaking time.
Yep.
And like sometimes, generally, if I cheat, I'll buy noodles
Yeah.
just because there's no point. Like
See,
I usually never have the counter space.
yeah, that's the hard part with
But to me, the ragu is
yeah.
that is what can make or break it. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I talked to you about it, but the people in Texas, I've run into a lot.
Hmm.
They throw brown sugar or sugar in their spaghetti sauce because
Yes.
it's too acidic, and I'm like, oh my god! And it's not the Hispanic people.
You know, no, it's not. And that, and it's,
Pichihuelos.
dude. For the kids at home, we call that wet
Sorry.
Mexicans or something else. But yeah, like they put the brown sugar into the tomato sauce. It makes the tomato sauce taste too sweet to me.
Yeah, it kills it,
It
and
it just tastes off. I'm like, what
it's
is wrong with
horrible.
this? And like, I couldn't figure out at first what they were. I've had a couple Southerners I know do that as well, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you trying to do to me? Like, what are you
You
doing
try
to
to
this?
kill me?
What is this crap? It just tasted a little off. I was like, why does this taste sweet? This shouldn't taste like this.
Oh yeah, and it's
You know?
usually about like the fifth bite. Where you're like, nope, I am not tripping. This
Hmm.
fork is clean. The plate was clean. It's the frickin' sauce.
And if the sauce is fucked up, you've just fucked the whole thing. Like at
Oh
that
yeah.
point, throw it out and start over. But yeah, the sauce is the sauce. It is absolutely the
Oh,
sauce.
it's all about the sauce. And I'll
Hmm.
like my my ex was kind of my big connection to Chicago because Oklahoma City and Rock Island line, which is an old rail line, used to run
Hmm.
through her a lot. So OKC, Chicago, and Rock Island, Illinois,
Hmm.
have a big connection. Mostly because the Rock Island munition plant, but
Right.
uh, so it was it was a lot of fun to learn what I learned.
Hmm.
I had to pay a hell of a toll to learn
Yep.
it. But I'm not mad about it. Like I'm like hell. I learned so much. How can I be mad that it didn't work out? Shit.
Right. I mean, I look at past relationships with certain people, and I learned a hell of a lot from certain people, and I'm like, what a pain in the ass they were, but
Yeah.
the payout was good in the long run. Like
My ragu is perfect.
I set my house on fire, but my fucking sauce is amazing.
Right? Exactly. I'm glad you said it first.
It's the
My
way it
sauce
is,
is
man.
amazing.
My sauce is amazing. Check it out.
Ain't got nowhere to cook it no more, but
Exactly. That kitchen doesn't exist, but my sauce is gonna be fucking amazing. But yeah, I will. There's always a payout somewhere down the road where you're like, something's gonna come through on this. But I wanted to go ahead and start wrapping up with you a little bit.
okay.
I'm gonna do the questionnaire because
Yay! I was excited for this.
yeah, I thanks to Stig who asked to bring it up. He brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, the Pivot questionnaire. The questionnaire is actually originally from the Actors Studio. It's from a French series, which Bouillon de Culture. I don't speak the French very
Yes.
well, but hosted by
Seasoning of culture.
yes. So it was hosted by Bernard Pivot. So this is 10 questions that is asked at the end of every segment of Inside the Actor Studio, and it's just to kind of get a little point of view into someone's thoughts and feelings. So, Bryan, uh, what
Yes.
is your favorite word?
Oh. I'm gonna keep it easy. Favorite word to say right now, and it's kind of crass, but fuckery.
So, favorite word is fuckery. I
Yeah.
approve because there's a lot of it. Um,
There's a lot of that afoot.
exactly. What is your least favorite word?
Can't
Okay.
or
What?
won't.
Yeah.
Kind of same word, but
Say yeah, but can't. That's one I hear a
can't.
lot.
Definitely can't.
Okay, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? Um,
Get the noggin jogging.
to me, like creatively, it's being able to take things that have been neglected
Okay.
and like just for an example, we have old irons. They're called sad irons,
Mhm.
from days before you actually had gas and stuff in the house. But you'd set it up on top of the stove or electricity in the house. You'd set it up on the stove, you'd let it warm up, and then you'd use that, and there'd be a clip that goes on it, and do that. So being able to actually fix things creatively really gets me going, and being able to reuse it,
Mhm.
not wasting.
Right. Okay. What turns you off?
Oh,
Petting the
so
dogs.
many, so many. uh, I'm gonna say being a braggart.
Mm. Mhm. So, what is your favorite curse word?
Oh, definitely fuck.
uh,
Just because, like from Boondock Saints,
yeah.
well, that's definitely showed the various uses of the word.
It's true. Now, what sound or noise do you love?
Oh, that's a close tie again. Uh, Being a country boy, I'm gonna have to say the rain.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
Hearing the rain come down on a good sweltering summer night,
Mhm.
and you're sitting there dying, just sweating pools on the bed, and you hear that rain start, and then you
Mhm.
hear the wind pick up, come through the grass, and you smell it, and like I'll go out and I'll sit on the porch and just watch rainstorms. But yeah, rain, the sound of rain.
Yeah. Now, what sound or noise do you hate?
Wow. One in particular?
Yeah, like any
Okay.
sound or noise that you
I think the sound that bothers me the most is hearing someone's brakes squeal,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
because I
terrible
know how
sound.
simple of a fix it is.
Blow the air out. Um, okay. What profession other than your own would you attempt?
Uh, See, I'm in a unique spot there. Um, the only profession I haven't been able to attempt so far and actually make it a profession would be a firefighter.
Mm,
Like I wanted to join the military, but they found out about my back and it was a no. So,
right.
but yeah, firefighter, just because everybody loves seeing the firemen show up. It's a sad occasion
Right.
usually, but we're there because someone called,
Right.
not because we're instigating.
Right.
Yeah, I
So,
say we because my dad and grandfather and everything.
mhm. It's a family affair.
It's a mentality is the best way I can put it. That's one of the things I got from my dad is with him I always have a go bag. There's always spare clothes in my car for me and another person
Mhm.
just in case. And if you look in my toolbox, I can fix just about any problem you got with what's in there. So yeah, fireman.
That's cool. Now, what profession would you not like to do?
Uh, Cop.
Yeah.
Just because it's not what it was supposed to be.
Right. Now, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Hell yeah, y'all come on in.
God, God's
I
your
would like to hear
good.
God with a southern drawl. Uh, on a more deep note,
Mhm.
uh, thanks for being nice. Thanks for caring.
That's good. Well, I really appreciate you hanging out with me. We've talked quite a
Oh,
bit, but
it's a pleasure, truly. I mean, I think we're something like around 6 odd hours of conversing, and I've lost track of when we started recording. So probably
uh,
about 2 hours of recording.
yeah, yeah, almost. We're like 2 hours and 30 in. Um, but yeah, like it was awesome talking to you. You know what I mean? Because I
Oh,
usually,
I appreciate it.
do take time set aside for people. I know that scheduling gets a little wacky for everyone in some way, shape, or form, or there's technical difficulties and
Oh
beyond.
yeah.
But it's always good to get sit down and have a conversation and really just kind of dig into different stuff about individuals. But on
Hmm.
the screen, what people will see is your Twitter, where people can find you,
Awesome.
and they can also find your YouTube channel and check Brian's. He's got plenty of videos up, and if you want to see his koi
I'm
fish
like a
digging,
pinball machine.
he's
Yeah,
got.
you can see me dig a koi pond. You can
Yep.
see me get attacked by yellow jackets. You can also see me play a lot of video games. So it's a hodgepodge. You can also see me shoot guns. But
Exactly. So I mean, it's basically what you're going to find on Brian's channel is Brian. You're not going to
yeah.
find a person posing as Brian or Brian pretending to be Bigfoot yet. Nothing is clear, but I will say you will find
Hey,
general
I do like
messiness.
beef jerky.
Oh god, the messing with Bigfoot commercials get me every time. So
Yes.
anyway, but if you want to check out Brian's stuff, please do, and his also the links will be in the description for his channel. I want to thank everybody for hanging out, listening. Uh, I will hopefully be popping up some more episodes soon. So thanks so much, Brian, for hanging out. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, have a great night, everyone who's listening, or day,
Y'all
wherever you're
too.
at.
Have a good.